What in the hell's diversity?
Well, I could be wrong, but I believe diversity is an old wooden ship that was used during the Civil War era.
Norway.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Jake, you're Atticus Barry with you guys. Okay, it's a wild ride tonight. We have an interesting rotating series of hosts tonight. So Anna and I are going to start. Then Ida Rolla is going to come in, and then Brooke Thomas and Alonzo Bowden are going to come in. We got a lot of stories for you guys. Acosta's in a lot of trouble. Luckily, finally, Epstein's in a lot of trouble. And there's an amazing story of discrimination in the second hour, but Kamala Harris with a new proposal that I'm not sure I'm in favor of. She might have outflanked me on the left there. That's a fascinating turn of events.
Is it the real estate thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't wait for that discussion.
Yes, so lots of different interesting things in today's program. Okay, but we start with, I would argue, great news. So let me do that for you guys. New Justice Democrats are here. I told you justice was coming. So you know the Justice Democrats that won last time around: AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, and you know Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal, and Grijalva are already in Congress. So we got 7 more on the way. So today, 3 new candidates announced. Some you will remember, and some are new. So up first, Cori Bush, Justice Democrat again. She was one of the 4 women featured in the documentary Knock Down the House, along with AOC. And Cori is back and against Lacey Clay. Cori is amazing. If you saw the movie, didn't see the movie, you might not know all about her. She's a Black Lives Matter organizer in St. Louis. She was the first vice chairperson of the Missouri Democratic Party Progressive Caucus. She was a 2015 Woman of Courage Award from the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation, 2016 Deluxe Magazine Power 100 Award, Top 50 Women of St. Louis by Gazelle Magazine, Unsung Human Rights Hero by the St. Louis Coalition for Human Rights in 2017, and in 2018 Community Activist Award from the Missouri Association of Black Ministers. So this is exactly what the Justice Democrats look for. Someone who has been helping the community, working in the community from day one. When she got into it, she had no idea she was going to get into politics. In fact, a lot of the people working at Justice Democrats asked her to get involved in politics because that's the next step. When you're already looking out for your community this much, you should actually look out for them in Congress, as the other Justice Democrats have done. And so she's a registered nurse, she's an ordained pastor. She ran against Lacey Clay last time. Now that's a machine that Clay has and a lot of incumbents have. And they don't play nice. But Cori Bush is so strong. We're gonna tell you in a second how you can help all of these great women who are running, but it's great to have her back. I don't know what Lacey Clay's done. I mean, I know his family's been there in Congress for a long time. Can you name, or can anyone in his district name anything that Lacey Clay has done? No, a lot of these incumbents just sit there going, well, hey, I got the seat. I was handed the seat and I'm just gonna keep it. And the way to keep it is you keep your head down. Don't cause any controversy. Don't fight for your voters. Just keep on taking that donor money. And remember, just Democrats, no corporate PAC money. That's why you know they can represent you. That's why in Congress, they've actually been representing you, unlike a lot of the other corporate Democrats. So Corey's up first. Now, another Just Democrat that was around last time, Marie Newman. She is running against, she's in Illinois 3, and she's running against one of the two worst Democrats in the House. So we're taking on the two most conservative Democrats. Already we'd announced Jessica Cisneros against Henry Cuellar. In this case, it's Dan Lipinski. He is the head of the pro-life caucus, even though he's a Democrat. He has voted against immigrants. He has voted against raising the minimum wage. He has voted against Obamacare. He's voted against LGBTQ rights. Why is this guy a Democrat? Well, you might say, well, maybe he's in a really purple district, or he won a seat in a Republican district and he has to appease those voters. No, even Hillary Clinton won his district by 15 points. He's deeply conservative because he wants to be. And so, are the voters in that district anywhere near that conservative? Nowhere near it. The number one problem is people don't know. They see a D next to Dan Lipinski's name and think that, oh, he's a Democrat, he must be a progressive. No, he's deeply conservative. He's gotta go. She almost beat him last time. It was one of the closest races in the whole country. She only lost by 2,000 votes. But this time around, justice is coming. So Marie Newman's back, again, a Just Democrat. I'm just gonna tell you right now before I even give you the rest. Just there's one more. JustDemocrats.com/July slate is you go how you support these folks. JustDemocrats.com/July slate. You could do that. We'll put a link down below if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook. Now, a new Justice Democrat. You know how Susan Collins helped, well, she's a Republican, so she helped the Republicans pass many things, including putting Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. And the list goes on for all the things that she aided and abetted Donald Trump on. Well, if people were so mad about that, they raised $4 million for whoever is her general election opponent. So corporate Democrats are like, woo, $4 million from real voters. On top of the corporate bribes we'll get, that's amazing. We're gonna go take that money. Wrong, you're not gonna take that money. We're gonna go get it for justice. And the candidate for the Just Democrats is Betsy Sweet. So now Betsy Sweet, another amazing woman. Let me tell you about her. She was executive director of the Maine Women's Lobby. In 2017, she wrote and helped pass the first Family Medical Leave Act in the country. She helped create the first clean election system in the country in Maine. She created the Civil Rights Team Project that is now in over 400 schools. These are the kind of people who should be representing you. Susan Collins always brags, hey, once in a blue moon, I vote with Democrats. I'm so moderate. And the rest of the media is like, oh, moderate Susan Collins. She once voted against Donald Trump and once voted against George W. Bush. Not nearly good enough. No way, get out the way, get out the way. Here comes Betsy Sweet. So everybody, these are wonderful candidates. You gotta go support them because they're not taking corporate PAC money. So JusticeDemocrats.com/July slate, okay? And you can go to their individual websites as well. And I think that we are gonna have a whole new day in Congress because imagine what all these women can do on top of what AOC and the others are doing. Imagine if it's only 7 of them in Congress. Now all of a sudden you got these 3, you got Cisneros, and so many others. Jamal Bowman running against Elliot Engel in New York. Go to JustDemocrats.com, find out about all the Just Democrats, and more are coming. So justice is headed over to the House and to the Senate. And I can't wait if on the night of the election in 2020, not only do we take down Donald Trump, I'm also dreaming of taking down Mitch McConnell, but we put in all these Just Democrats in the House and the Senate. That's how you get change. Because look, not only will we have more votes in those places for Medicare for all, Green New Deal, all of these folks agree with that, okay? Agree with all these progressive reforms. But on top of that, let's be real, let's be honest. We will have scared the bejesus out of the incumbents. And so all of a sudden, my guess is they're gonna find Jesus, or at least the progressive version. Well, Jesus is the progressive version. And they're gonna go, oh yeah, I meant Medicare for all. I meant Medicare for all. So send them a message, make sure these strong, brave women fighters get into Congress.
All right, so we have some other news. By the way, that was awesome. Super exciting and inspiring, especially seeing all those strong women speak truth to power like that, so.
Yeah, look, I think Betsy Sweet has an excellent chance of winning. I think Marie Newman is the favorite. We lost so many last time around too. We had wonderful, amazing victories, but we also lost a lot. So I fear saying that Marie Newman's the favorite, but I really, my political analysis is that she is.
Yeah.
And so getting more of these super strong progressive women in.
It's so important, especially considering this next story that we're gonna do, because it's certainly related.
Yeah, and one last thing about Corey. I know. Sorry, I hear the control room. All right, look, the Lacey Clay just sitting there doing absolutely nothing, and he won by a wide margin last time. I'm going to keep it real, okay? But so he thinks, I got this. I don't have to worry about Cori Bush. Oh, community organizer, Black Lives Matter organizer. Lacey Clay's like, I'm already African American and I'm the incumbent, so I don't have to worry about it.
No way, Clay.
Oh, hashtag no way, Clay. Well, look, where there's a will, there's no Clay.
That's pretty good.
Okay, all right, now here's why we need him.
All right. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi continues to demonstrate that she's saltier than the Dead Sea when it comes to freshman Democrats. In fact, earlier she was attacking freshman Democrats for the way that they voted against giving Border Patrol billions of dollars with no strings attached. And that was in an interview with Maureen Dowd in the New York Times. Now, Politico is reporting that Pelosi had a caucus meeting, closed door meeting, where she decided to continue going after these individuals who continue to challenge her failure to lead, her failure to actually resist Trump's policies. In fact, she has only enabled Trump when it comes to the treatment of migrants. Let me make the case. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been very clear in her reasoning as to why she voted against the appropriations bill that would give Border Patrol over $4 billion, $4.6 billion. And she tweets about it. She's very open and transparent, saying DHS and ICE are flagrantly violating congressional orders just as we said they would. Yet it is Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, and I that were wrong to oppose throwing more money to abuse agencies, right?
So I want to give some context there. Because there's two different proposals that the four of them voted against. One was the Republican proposal, which eventually over 100 Democrats voted against, and Nancy Pelosi needed Republican votes to pass. In fact, more Republicans voted for Nancy Pelosi's ultimate legislation than Democrats did. So Pelosi must be so proud. I'm sure she's gonna get a bipartisan pat on the back from all the mainstream media. But that's a Republican bill that Pelosi passed, period. It was a Republican bill in the Senate and majority Republican in the House, and Trump was thrilled to have it with no conditions. But there was also an earlier House version, and those four voted against that one too, because that House version said, okay, here are conditions, but they're not really conditions. They rely on the goodwill of the Trump administration.
Right.
That's why AOC gives that tweet. How's that goodwill of the Trump administration working out for you?
Exactly, and I love that she brought that up because, like, you're gonna attempt to do this honor system with the Trump administration. I mean, they have
what honor?
Oh, exactly, they are as dishonorable as anyone could possibly be. But Pelosi took notice of how AOC uses social media, and it's not just AOC, it's other freshman Democrats, how they use social media to communicate with their constituents and to also give a little transparency into why these decisions are being made. And so in a closed door meeting, Pelosi said, quote, "I'm here to help the children when it's easy and when it's hard. Some of you are here to make a beautiful pate, but we're making sausage most of the time."
Okay.
Oh, okay, what?
Yeah.
All right, so that was strange.
All right, so I want to talk about that too. So she's being dismissive in such a hilariously elitist way with references to pate. Okay, I don't know, I guess I'm a barbarian. Is pate the thing with liver? Is that no?
I think so. I don't know. People put it on cheese plates.
Okay, so whatever, right? But to her, because remember Maureen Dowd, the thing with liver, we confirmed it. we do a news show here. Okay, so the Maureen Dowd interview where Nancy Pelosi also took pot shots at AOC and other Just Democrats, Maureen Dowd was like, she's holed away in her bunker in her vineyard at Napa Valley. My guess is
things are tough there.
Yeah,
very tough.
She's not eating sausage there, she's eating pate. Okay, so now she's referencing, of course, hey, you don't want to see the sausage getting made, that phraseology, right? But that makes it seem like, oh, you guys are children. This is why she's talking down to them. Like, oh, sure, we'd all love to have our version of the bill, but I don't know if you know this. We have to compromise here to get things done in Congress.
No, it's
if I hear one more unbearable coward Democrat say that, as if they're like in their patronizing, demeaning way, not only to us, but now to the young freshman minority congresswomen. Like, oh, you might not know this, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ayanna Pressley. But here, we're making sausage, and there's other people, of course they know that. Of course we all know that. Stop being patronizing. It is unbearable. The question, and my question back to you, because apparently you don't know anything about how to actually get things done, Nancy Pelosi, is do you know that if you actually stood up for your own position, especially when you have leverage and you could control one of the branches of Congress, that you might actually be able to get concessions for your own side.
But here's the thing, Cenk. She would get concessions. I mean, she has a great deal of leverage in this case. I mean, the Democrats control the House, we all know that. She is House Speaker. And you have the Trump administration asking for more border control funding, right, in this appropriations bill. I mean, the whole point of electing Democrats to Congress and to the House is to make sure they control the House and they serve as a means to mitigate the damage that the Trump administration wants to do. What's the point if they're not actually gonna do what they're supposed to do? Like, what I would do if I were Nancy Pelosi is say, no, I am not going to sign on to this unless we have the safeguards necessary, unless we have improvements for the conditions of these migrants. I am not gonna throw away hard-earned taxpayer money at these facilities that have children die under Border Patrol watch. And I would do a press conference every single day, and I would apply pressure to the Trump administration. But that is not what she's interested in doing.
So look, it is a really fair argument as to whether Nancy Pelosi is not that bright, and she just really is terrible as a legislator, or she actually agrees with Trump and the Republicans almost all the time and goes, oh golly gee, there's nothing I could do. Trump, you win again in exactly what you wanted.
She's scared. I think that's the answer. I think she's scared. I think she's worried that applying that pressure that I just spoke about is going to somehow hurt Democrats.
So now let me explain how you actually do this, because apparently you guys suck at your job. And let's not leave Chuck Schumer out of this, because he surrendered even more than Nancy Pelosi did. He was the original domino to fall. Chuck Schumer like talking tough about Acosta, et cetera. Now, yeah, spare me, okay? So when Trump said, hey, he was like, oh, that's how Schumer was, okay? Total and utter coward. So now, here's what you do, Schumer and Pelosi. You do a press conference like Anna said, and what do? You say, look, I'm gonna give you the money. I'm not gonna keep the money from you, but I wanna make sure that you're spending it in the right places, because in the past, you've taken money we've given and without permission, misappropriated to other places like your goddamn wall. Bingo. And it's not gonna happen on our watch. So at a bare minimum, look, this is the easiest thing in the world. You say, every kid's gonna get a mattress, every kid's gonna get soap and a shower every day, every kid's gonna get toothpaste. If you don't agree to that, have at it, Hoss. Come make your case. Come make your case to the American people that the kids should not have mattresses, that the kids should not have soap, and they shouldn't have showers. Go ahead, make your case. Make your case. I am gonna give you the money, but I'm not gonna give it to you until you not just promise it or do it on Scout's honor. Trump has no honor at all. Do you not know that, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer? No, these are our conditions and they are not negotiable. Until then, we're not passing it and it's on you.
And I just want to remind you all that Pelosi knows that she's in the wrong here. She knows, which is why she's being so incredibly defensive in her press interviews and in these closed door meetings with Democrats. Because remember, after the bill had been signed by Trump, he got the money that he wanted. What did Pelosi do? She releases a strongly worded letter toward Trump about how the conditions for these migrants needs to improve. What is your strongly worded letter gonna do? It's gonna do nothing.
Look, we got more from Pelosi in a second, but look, if you think strongly worded letters after you've already passed the legislation is the correct way to legislate, then you really should be fired immediately because you don't know anything about legislating. After you've already passed the bill, your letter is irrelevant. My God, are you such a child that you don't know that, Nancy Pelosi? Or do you think that, and look, to be fair to her, it's not that she thinks all the American people are children. She just thinks the press is so compliant. They'll dutifully write that I wrote a strongly worded letter to Trump and they'll pat me on the back and I'll win again. And which is what leads us to the next thing that Pelosi said.
Yes.
Because she thinks, no, you're not allowed to go around the press. I own the press, I control the press. I'm allowed to go to the press, you're not allowed to fight back.
So this is the part that really stood out to me because she's upset that members of Congress are turning to social media to communicate their differences with their constituents. So she says, you got a complaint, you come and talk to me about it, but do not tweet about our members and expect us to think that is just okay. So she had a full-on interview with Maureen Dowd in the New York Times where she very openly and clearly attacks freshman Democrats like AOC. So I don't know, I mean, maybe you should be a leader and quit with your negative commentary toward freshman members of the House if you don't want anyone to criticize you openly on Twitter. But with that said, I think the way that AOC has handled this and the way that she communicates with her constituents and Americans overall is incredibly important. This is the first time in a long time we have this level of transparency and honesty, and I think that it applies pressure to Pelosi. She doesn't like the fact that people on the left are now really starting to criticize the way her leadership style,
Okay, so a couple of things here. She says, you don't do it on Twitter, you come talk to me. What are you talking about? They came and talked to you. They talked to you 100 times. Every time you're like, no. Medicare for all? No, I sent my top staffer to go tell the insurance companies I got their back. Keep the money train going. We're never gonna do Medicare for all. Well, okay, we came and talked to you. What good did it do? Green New Deal, they came and talked to you and you called it Green Dream or whatever. What good did it to come talk to you? We came and talked to you about the $15 minimum wage. You said you were gonna do it. You said you were gonna do it the first 100 hours. Nothing, nothing. What good does it do to come talk to you when you work for the other side? When you constantly block all progressive policies and you constantly aid and abet the Republicans? It's like going and saying, oh, you should just go talk to George W. Bush or Dick Cheney or Donald Trump. Oh, if I just talk to them, oh, I see. So again, is that your idea of how legislation works? Childish, okay? Now, secondly, you're not allowed to use Twitter. I'm allowed to use the New York Times. Because the New York Times is subservient to the people in power. And let's be honest, they are. Now, New York Times does great investigative stories from time to time. But when it comes to their beloved establishment politicians, they never lay a glove on them. You want to go after a progressive, New York Times is your organization. They will smear a progressive day in, day out. Nancy Pelosi, oh, no, Nancy, what would you like to print? Oh, we need an interview. We need access, Nancy. Chuck, oh, you're so great, Chuck. What do you need? I'll do it for you. Oh, you want me to smear AOC? Of course, AOC is the worst, doesn't understand anything, et cetera, et cetera. New York Times, you are miserable at this. Hey, New York Times, hey, did you ever think the over $500 million that Nancy Pelosi raised, maybe it had strings attached? Wow, that would require journalists and editors who gave a damn about power, where it resides, where it comes from, and have sophisticated look into politics. But you know what? The people that work at the New York Times, also children, going around like, well, I mean, Nancy Pelosi got all the money, and I'm sure that all those corporations gave Pelosi and Schumer money for their health or for charity, and they didn't want anything in return, because corporations, they don't want return on investment. New York Times, stop helping the powerful. You're supposed to hold them to account. So now Pelosi says, well, I own and control the media like New York Times, so that is the only place you're allowed to go. Oh, going around the mainstream media, which we've already corrupted, to the actual people? Unacceptable. How dare you tweet? No, put away the Twitter, right? Why do you think they're holding all those hearings? You think it's because they're worried that Facebook, etc., has other issues? No, they hate that they cannot control the media anymore, both Republicans and Democrats. And finally, it's time for a Justice Caucus. Let's go. Let's go. I mean, look, I knew it from day one. Now, these are lessons hard learned by people, and they gave Pelosi every opportunity. They gave Schumer every opportunity. I told you, they're not on your side. Start the Justice Caucus now and build it, okay? And let's find out who's on what side. If you're on Trump's side, you join Pelosi's caucus. If you're on the side of progressives, you join the Justice Caucus. Let's go today. Fire Pelosi and let's move on.
All right, we got to go to break, but when you come back, there's going to be a different panel here.
Yeah,
okay?
So John's going to come join us. If you think I'm angry about this, wait till you get a load of me on Epstein on Acosta. I am so sick of the rich having different rules.
John can't wait.
Okay, all right, come right back.
Did you guys know that there are lawmakers here in the United States who want to make it difficult for people to view porn? Now, this has been an ongoing thing in American politics. And so one way that they're trying to do this is by proposing a bill that would charge people online $20 to access porn each time they want to access porn. But one way, if this passes, which I highly doubt it will, but if it does, here's the good news. You have the option of using a VPN. Like NordVPN. And what it does is it can totally mislead people about where you're located. So you could be in the United States, but you could use your VPN and make it seem like you're actually in Australia or whatever, wherever you want to be. So yeah, use the URL that you see on the screen right there, nordvpn.com/TYT, and you get a giant discount, 75% off for 3 years, and you get the first month free. All right.
Do they really want to do $20 a time?
I mean, I don't think that bill is gonna pass. Like, that's an insane bill, but.
No.
By the way, like, isn't it kind of creepy that there are lawmakers in America right now who are sitting around thinking about our porn viewing habits?
That's true.
Like, how about you fix other issues that need fixing?
You could raise a lot of money. Oh, you want to know how we're gonna pay for the Green New Deal?
Are you kidding me? People will
pull
find
up your
a way.
pants and I'll tell you.
People will find a way to get that porn for free. You're crazy. Okay.
Look, we're doing interviews over there, and we've done some amazing ones recently.
So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all?
And we're in the time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history in 2017.
Right. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Damage Report, another week of the news. I am John Idarola, and we've got a doozy of a show for you. My God, is DC up its own ass today. We have put someone into power in our country who is so crazy, they have finally out-crazied North Korea.
The US is the only country in the world that isn't part of the Paris Climate Accord.
Yesterday, Donald Trump did exactly what he told us. He pulled the US out of the Iran nuclear accords.
People call the police on black people. People are fearful of black humans. There is no more to the story than racism.
I was gonna say we've been dealing with the issue of lead poisoning in this country, but that would imply that we're really doing something. We have an issue with lead poisoning and it continues. So 60 people are now dead. Some of them grandmothers, many of them children. The silence of politicians on both sides of the aisle. Just about only Bernie Sanders, maybe Tulsi Gabbard, and a few others have actually been critical of what happened there. And the rest are cowards hiding behind silence, refusing to admit what happened yesterday.
We have to be able to accept that we do things wrong in this country. You can fix and change things, make things even.
What's great about our country, and this is a great example of it, is everybody's pissed off. This is The Damage Report, and it's all about the threats facing us each day. When something's relevant, and it's hot, and it's in the news, you're not supposed to talk about it. Can we start talking about it now? Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Jake Huger, John Iarolo with you guys. First, member comments. Shadow Hawk says this, anyone know what the lead-in song for TYT is? I think it's just a generic song, right? It's just not anything special. Meg says it's from the Library of Free Songs. You could find it there somewhere. Meg says, hell yeah.
Special.
Yeah, believe me, it's free. Okay, Meg says, hell yeah, Cory Bush. Beckdo71 says, I live in Washington State and even I'm sick of Susan frickin' Collins. Come on, man, get her out. So remember to promote those guys, support those guys, justdemocrats.com/July slate, okay? And then Hangry Skywalker says, saltier than the Dead Sea. Ha ha ha, the show may or may not have peaked already. Okay, it has not. By the way, we've got these rotating hosts today, which are kind of fun. Anna comes back in the last half hour. That's obviously the post game for the members. It's Anna, Alonzo Bowden, and J.R. Jackson in the last half hour for just the members. TYT.com/trial to become a member and check that out. Speaking of which, the Stone Buddha writes it on Twitter, stuck in Seattle traffic, at least I got TYT live. That's awesome. You can get the app, you can get it anywhere, anytime. Laura Gelazuna says the population of the US is around 50% women, so why isn't Congress made up of 50% women? Laura, we talked about this in the post game yesterday. That's again the last half hour of the Young Turks. Women are coming, and I think they are going to absolutely dominate over the next 20 to 30 years. So forget 50%, business executives, Congress, etc. I think you could say it's crazy. I don't think so. It's going to be more than 50% women. Now I know it's a long period of time, but I truly believe in that.
Tucker Carlson just had a heart attack.
I know, and I'm thrilled about it. Okay, so by the way, yesterday we told you about the movie that Wolf-PAC is making to highlight the end of corruption and how we can end it so that you could get rid of all of these problems at once. That's wolf-pac.com/film. I think we're up to $16,000, which is amazing in one day. Let's keep that going, wolf-pac.com/film.
That's awesome.
And tonight I'm gonna be, speaking of rotating hosts, I'm gonna be on Cuomo Primetime on CNN at 9 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to be talking about Alexandra Acosta and the deal that he made about Epstein. I am furious about that. We're going to talk a little bit about it now as well, and don't miss that. It will be definitely fiery. And one more thing not to miss. I know I'm throwing a lot of things at you, but there's a lot of great stuff coming up. We're going to Detroit. That's where the second debate is. And we want you guys to show up. We're doing it one night only, and it's the first night, July 30th. Sign up at tyt.com/rally. Let's go do it together. Detroit is one of the strongest towns that we have. In fact, in 2014, they pretty much tied for #1 along with Chicago in the city competition that we had for the different cities. And I remember the meetups there, wonderful people. We went and actually visited both Chicago and Detroit because they won the competitions. And then someone even did what's called a peep diorama, which sounds dirty but isn't.
It was great.
Yeah, actually. Of the TYT studio. So Detroit is an awesome TYT town. Okay, and you see how it says TYP for peep?
I love that.
Okay, And so make sure that you come join us in Detroit, whether you live in Detroit, anywhere in Michigan, or anywhere in the surrounding area. We need a huge turnout. Last couple of times, Bernie has at least stopped by both times. We've had a number of candidates that came by and spoke, some Justice Democrats, etc. So it's gonna be fantastic. Go to tyt.com/rally, and on July 30th, I will see you there, and so will John, because this time John Iadarola coming to Detroit. So
that's the idea.
Detroit, watch out. Here comes Johnny Pie.
Yeah, let's see if we can get some more people to sign on to the Progressive Economic Pledge. Because I just checked again, and it's at 4. And there are some names that there is no understandable reason why they have not signed on yet.
The presidential candidates, yes. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Marianne Williamson, and Mike Gravel have signed. And so were AOC, Ro Khanna, Jamie Raskin, a lot of wonderful progressive groups, and more is on the way. And over 25,000 of you have signed, and that's at tyt.com/pledge. Keep that going. Trust me, man. Yeah, that gets to 100,000. That's gonna get everybody's attention. 100,000 voters in the primaries. Every politician will be interested in that. And right now, it is a good question as to why some of the candidates have not signed.
Come on, Delaney.
Well, Delaney's fairly clear, fairly clear. But others I'm very curious about. So go to tyt.com/pledge to make that happen, okay? Let's go get them.
Okay, let's go get you were talking about Acosta? Might give you a chance to talk about it a little bit. The ongoing and developing Epstein legal drama has dominated the news this week. And unfortunately, in terms of what's going to happen, we don't have much new there. But people are re-digging into some of the fairly disgusting details of what he's been up to the past few decades. And thanks to the case once again being in the national spotlight, we also have a new accuser, which we're gonna get to in just a little bit. First, we do have all of his high-profile friends fleeing for the hills, effectively, saying they didn't know him as well as they're rumored to have. They didn't necessarily like him if they did know him. And Donald Trump is certainly one of the most high-profile examples of that, because as you've probably heard this quote before, he was quoted in 2002 saying in New York Magazine, "I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." Which is just creepy in so many different ways. And so because of that, and because their pictures been taken together, and Epstein claims that he was responsible for Trump getting together with Melania in the first place, both of their numbers were in his black book when that was revealed a few years back. People want more details, and we're getting them, and they're pretty disgusting too. So there's some new reporting. The New York Times talking about a party that Donald Trump went to with Epstein. And so Trump in 1992 directed a Florida businessman, George Heraney, who would later accuse Trump of sexually harassing his former girlfriend and business partner, Jill Harth, that's a separate story, to organize a members-only calendar girl competition at Mar-a-Lago. After Heraney arranged to have some contestants fly in, he told the Times in an interview Monday, he discovered that there would be only 2 attendees. At the very first party, I said, "Who's coming tonight?" "I have 28 girls coming. It was him and Epstein," Heraney recalled. "I said, Donald, this is supposed to be a party with VIPs. You're telling me it's you and Epstein?" And indeed it was. So they had a big group of more than a couple dozen girls, and just those two having fun times and appreciating beautiful women, some on the young side perhaps.
Yeah, so listen.
That's all the details we have.
Yeah.
Oh, one added wrinkle before you jump in. While Trump is now saying, I didn't approve, not a big fan of him at the time. He said he was a terrific guy. Heraney, at least now, is saying even back then, Heraney was worried about Epstein. He said he pretty much had to ban Jeff from my events. Trump didn't care about that.
So that goes to the same thing that the Donald Trump quote goes to. They knew back then. Donald Trump doesn't go around saying, man, Jeff Epstein likes girls young, when for no reason. Remember, Donald Trump liked girls young. And I'm not saying that to put him in the same boat as Epstein. I'm saying that and I have evidence of that. Remember, there's a story of how he used to surprise the younger pageant girls, Donald Trump, and would walk into their dressing room when they were half naked. And he has, on a number of occasions, and some of it is on video, talked to really young girls and said, oh, you're gonna be a beauty when you grow up, etc. If Donald Trump is saying that Epstein, who he knew really well back then, likes girls really young, man, that means he likes them really, really young. And they all knew. He said, Trump once joked around about how he went to a pool party at Epstein's place, or he went to Epstein's place and there was a bunch of kids in the pool, and he's like, "What'd you get? Like something like?" Do you have that?
So this is coming, unfortunately, from a book by Roger Stone, but he said that Trump visited Epstein at his Palm Beach home, and later seemed to joke about the scene of underage girls he witnessed there, saying the swimming pool was filled with beautiful young girls. Trump apparently told a Mar-a-Lago member, "How nice, I thought, he let the neighborhood kids use his pool."
Now remember, Roger Stone is not saying this as a criticism of Trump, who he is great friends with, or necessarily even of Epstein. He's just saying, hey, these are my buddies, and Trump said this about another friend of his. Oh, he let the neighborhood kids use his pool. No, they know why he let the neighborhood kids use the pool, so he could molest them. They all knew. And people who were decent back then would ban him from events because he was a predator. Trump, on the other hand, thought that's my kind of guy. Hung out with him, went to parties with him, invited 28 calendar girls to party with him. These guys are all scum.
Yeah, and look, I was very clear this morning when we talked about this in the damage report that all of this looks really bad, but we don't know anything for sure. And in all likelihood, I mean, we know how difficult it's been, how many attempts it's taken for Epstein to have any real legal consequences. Donald Trump is much more powerful than Epstein. The idea that if anything happened, and we don't know that it did, that there would ever be any consequences for Donald Trump, I think is pretty hard to imagine. I mean, how many times has he been credibly accused of doing some sexual assault, rape, those sorts of things already, and it's meant nothing. The idea that a few more, that would tip the scales, I kind of doubt it at this point.
Now
and we don't know that anything happened.
No, look. I'm so tired of the rich having different rules. I can't stand it anymore. This story has made me snap on that. I mean, look, we all hated it from day one. We covered the affluenza stories, the Stanford kid who did the rape and got away with it. The original affluenza story, I think 4 people died, and they're like, oh, but he's rich, it's okay, etc. When he's drunk driving. In this case, Epstein, they let him out for 16 hours in the day when he was supposed to be in jail. He had his own private suite inside the jail when he went to go sleep there for 8 hours. It was a goddamn hotel. They gave him every advantage. Now, if you're a bleeding heart liberal and you say, well, look, I don't know that we need to take the guy and break his back and put him in and have the other guys do terrible things to him in prison, etc. But they do that to poor people all the time. They do it to middle class people all the time. And if your middle class person was caught molesting dozens of girls, do you think he's gonna have his private suite where he only sleeps there and is out for 16 hours a day, 6 out of the 7 days? Do you think any of that is gonna happen? Of course not. And I can't stand it anymore. Now, when you turn to Trump and Clinton, look, John is right. We have no idea if Trump or Clinton did anything with underage girls. We don't know that. We do know, at least Trump is on the record as having known that Epstein likes young girls. By young, Trump clearly means underaged. So if you say, no, it's not clear, maybe he was just talking about 18 and 19-year-olds. Okay, you can believe any fantasy you like. But look at the quote about the neighborhood kids in the pool. They knew. If you knew and protected a child molester in your neighborhood that had molested dozens of kids, you'd be in a world of trouble. Prosecutors would be all over you. Were you an accessory? What did you know? When did you know it? What crimes did you cover up? But hey, no, Trump, Clinton, rich and powerful. So you think there's gonna be justice? I mean, it took decades to now even think about justice for Epstein, who's the guy who we know did it in the first place. Remember, he pled guilty last time around, okay, for that nonsense sentence, but he did plead guilty. And by the way, it was for what they said, solicitation of prostitutes. Some of the girls were 14 years old. They were not prostitutes.
They can't be prostitutes.
By definition and legal definition, they can't be prostitutes. But by the way, they were not, most of them were not engaged in that. He co-opted them into it. He said, oh, just give me a massage. Oh, I'll just be half naked. Oh, I'll just be naked. And he's a predator. And they call those 14-year-old girls prostitutes just so they could let Epstein off easier. And now, since some of the most powerful people in the country were Epstein's buddies, there's not gonna be any justice for them. Nobody's gonna be talking about accessory. Nobody's gonna be talking about, hey, did they know about Epstein's crimes? Who's gonna hold them accountable? Nancy Pelosi?
Well, no.
Don't be ridiculous.
I mean, William Barr said that he's not going to recuse himself, which means he wants to be the sheriff on the beat. He wants to make sure that there's consequences. That's why he's not recusing himself.
And if you're wondering about why would William Barr, the Attorney General, I get why he wants to protect Trump. That's the whole point of why he was put in office. But why does he care about protecting Epstein or Acosta? One, it comes back to Trump. So there's William Barr. No. You know what? Trump did build a wall. He built a wall around himself with William Barr by appointing him Attorney General. Says so. Barr's like on the scene. Whatever you do, you're not allowed to touch Donald Trump. Okay, so you will not be going after him. But on top of that, you know that Acosta, before he was a prosecutor on the Epstein case, worked at Kirkland Ellis. The reason William Barr, one of the reasons that he was going to recuse himself from the entire case, but now has only recused himself from part of the case, was because Barr also worked at Kirkland Ellis. And wait for it, you want to know who represented Epstein? Kirkland Ellis. So it's a nice little club they got going there. The problem isn't pizza parlors. The problem is that the rich and powerful have an army of lawyers. They're all connected. They're all in the same goddamn club. So the only punishment that ever comes is to the average American. And they skate every time. And I can't stand it anymore. All right, we got to take a break. We're not done with this story yet. We got a couple more updates throughout the show about different things that have happened. Let's take a quick break right now and come right back.
From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Yes, President Donald Trump has made life hell.
Everything is always about race because the sitting president, known for his trigger Twitter fingers, somehow kept it tight-lipped over the Nazis who returned to Charlottesville last week.
If Republican politicians genuinely cared about all lives, we wouldn't be facing the largest wealth redistribution in American history.
Trump, who claims he wants to make America great again, but isn't really interested in protecting the little guy, just withdrew Obama's memo and told collectors that they're free to go back to screwing over struggling Americans with fees.
This decision will impact far and wide, especially, and listen for the irony here, those who already pay more out of pocket each year due to soaring internet package prices.
There's a ton of racist monuments in America. White supremacy is still put up on a pedestal.
Of course, more white people are killed by police. White people make up more than 75% of the US population.
So you can justify your bigotry and feel better about saying these things at dinner, polite dinner conversation with a side of racism and home fries.
Does the president normally watch these kind of anti-Muslim videos that have been posted by this group?
Here's a list of what the president watches every day. It goes cartoons, Fox and Friends cartoons, followed by, at noon, it was a bunch of Civil War documentaries for like 6 hours. But he claps at all the wrong times.
This is the wildest, craziest motherfucking race I've ever seen. What are we gonna do? Not make brackets? Let us whisper victory. Wait a minute! All of a sudden, here comes Bernie! Good night and good luck, everybody. These are the two most unpopular candidates we have ever had in our nation's history. Jesus Christ, there is significant boos every time Hillary Clinton's name is mentioned.
Everyone I know is voting for her out of fear. He was looking at Donald Trump's hair like it was cotton candy.
That's right. Get him out. Get him out.
It's political game. They don't care about lives.
Bow your head. This is what we mean by the establishment press.
Do you trust the establishment media?
Yeah, no.
We have a good time on this show. What else are you gonna watch?
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
They did 100 squats a day for 30 days straight. I was like, how hard can that be? That doesn't sound very hard. So I'm gonna try to do this for 30 days and see if there's any difference in my physique.
3 weeks later.
Steve, how is your exercise regimen coming along with your squats?
I did 100, 100, 100, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
You're pacing yourself.
Yeah.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Carlson says Donald Trump said he would date his own daughter. Does it even surprise us that he has no limits? Good question. Eddie O'Donnell on Twitter says, oh God, it was at Mar-a-Lago. That's the Calendar Girl party. Now it should make people suspicious of the members there. I'm sure they were a swell bunch as it was. Al Belso says, in my opinion, Epstein and Trump are made from the same mold. They both have a thing for underage girls. I can only imagine what both have joked about behind closed doors. Yikes. Now we know some of Donald Trump's locker room talk from the Access Hollywood tapes. And that was when he was mic'd and with people that are on television.
That he doesn't know well.
That he doesn't know that well. Imagine what he said to his buddies that he knows sleeps with underage girls. Okay, all right, let's get.
Just don't expect justice.
All right, absolutely. By the way, wolf-pac.com/film now above 17,000. Keep it going, brothers and sisters. And I know I'm asking for a lot, but this is how we're gonna win. And then at the end of the day, once we have public financing, then we don't have to keep on giving, but we gotta win on that first. So also don't forget justdemocrats.com/July slate, okay? All right, Go ahead, John.
Okay, more devastating accounts from the border with agents for the Department of Health and Human Services talking with some of the children being held in the network of concentration camps down at our southern border. I want to give you some of what they have most recently revealed, and you can add this on to the horrific news that we've gotten over the past few weeks. A 16-year-old Guatemalan boy held in Yuma, Arizona, said he and others in his cell complained about the taste of the water and food they were given. The Customs and Border Protection agents took the mats out of their cell in retaliation, forcing them to sleep on hard concrete. So there you have a very particular case of a justifiable concern about the water and food quality. A kid being punished because he dared to question the authority figures who were responsible for his welfare there. And you can, more generally, this is apparently an issue because nearly every child interviewed by the HHS caseworkers after leaving the Yuma border station reported poor sleeping conditions. A 17-year-old boy from Guatemala reported having to sleep outside, even though his clothes were wet from having recently crossed a river, likely the Colorado River. So if you dare to arrive needing to be warmed up and get new clothes, they're of course not gonna do that. In fact, they might make you sleep outside. And once you get in, even if you have a mat, you best be on your best behavior or else you might lose it.
Yeah, there's a couple of things here that, I mean, of all the different horrible things that really shook me, a 15-year-old girl from Honduras described a large bearded officer putting his hands inside her bra, pulling down her underwear and groping her. But not only that, she said he was speaking English and there were other officers around and they were all laughing. So, you know, they talk about a few bad apples, but it isn't about whether they're good or bad apples. It's the culture that comes from the top. Do you treat these kids with dignity and respect, even if they're not, even if you think they're not even going to win their asylum cases or they're going to be sent back? Or do you treat them like prisoners and like dirt and like animals because the president told you that they're like criminals and rapists and animals and a virus and all the horrible, horrible things that he has said? And then the other one that struck me was, now I'm quoting NBC News here, one child wore soiled underwear for 10 days. He was in the border station because he was afraid to ask the officers for a clean pair. So a lot of the kids reporting they were scared to death of the officers. And so that's the only reason why you wouldn't ask for a clean pair for 10 days. More reports, a lot of the kids saying, first of all of them, this is a fact, they don't turn the lights off at night. I'm sure that they have a reason for that, probably so that nothing wrong happens when it's dark. But that's not how humans sleep. So the kids have incredible trouble sleeping, plus they're on the concrete floor. And on top of that, some of the officers would come and kick some of the students during the night. So what are we doing here? I mean, so then they criticize AOC for calling it a concentration camp. The fish rots from the head down. You set a culture of abusing and these kids and instituting cruelty by definition.
Yeah. Yeah, in some of the other accounts, they're yelling at kids for going near windows, swearing at them. Last week, it was revealed that a man, I guess, who they had an issue with, they had a sign that they wrote in Spanish, "I like men," and made him march around the facility in front of everyone else with it. And it goes to the argument that AOC has been making after some of the criticism of her for daring to vote against the Senate bill. Of all the things that we've talked about, which of those would be fixed if they had more money? If that facility had $10,000 more, would they have not tried to shame the guy for, he's not even gay, but if he were gay, like that's funny, you march him around to shame him, or you make the kids sleep outside. Is that a money thing? That they would have given the kid underwear and not been scary if they had had more funding?
So if you don't believe us, well, let me quote one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress, Matt Gaetz. He's also one of the biggest defenders of Donald Trump, but apparently still human, because he went to Yuma, where this is the detention center where these stories are coming from. And he said, quote, "The human condition that I observed in Yuma was the worst state of human condition I have ever seen in my life." Now, he didn't say that like, oh my God, we had a border at the crisis and we got to keep these people out. No, he clarified. He said, and look, he put it in a right-wing framing. He said Homeland Security agents that were dealing with the conditions that they had not trained for, that they were not equipped to handle, and they were doing the very best they could under terrible circumstances. So he's definitely talking about the conditions. And he said it's the worst he's ever seen in his life.
Yeah.
So the best case scenario is Donald Trump's administration is so incompetent that they didn't train or equip those officers, and that is why they have created the worst conditions that Matt Gaetz has ever seen in his life for those kids that are being detained in these detention centers. Final thing, look guys, if you're a conservative, is there another path? Like, does that mean, okay, you let everybody into the country and they're, as Trump says in his maniacal, ridiculous way, then we don't have any borders and we don't have any country? No. You could actually be, in a sense, tougher without being cruel. So here's another path, not a progressive path and not a path I'm in favor of. But you could say, hey, you know what? Since we know we're going to be really tough in sending people back, what we're gonna do is we're gonna prepare ahead of time. Now, it doesn't mean we have to be cruel. We're Americans. And we're, and for evangelical Christians that voted for Donald Trump, we're Christians. We do the right thing. We do what Jesus would do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna spend some extra money on mattresses and all the things that you would need. Like, these are not complicated things: soap, toothpaste, etc. Change of clothes for these kids. And we're gonna spend money on extra judges. You know why? Because we're gonna process them quick. And if most of them fail their asylum hearings, which by the way normally happens under all administrations, Republican and Democrat, then we're gonna send them back, and we're gonna send them back as quickly as possible. But while they're here, we're gonna treat them great. You know why? Because we're Americans. Now, you could have done that, and that would arguably be more conservative. But Trump didn't want that. He wanted the cruelty. He said it in his words, and he did it in his actions. And it doesn't look like he lost any Republican voters because of it. So what does that say about you if you don't want to do it the humane way, and that's still very conservative? Does that mean you kind of like it this way? And if you do, you've even shocked Matt Gaetz's conscience.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have one.
It's looking really bad. A couple more reports like this, and Nancy Pelosi might have to give him $5 billion more. Not the hill for us to die on, I guess, though. Shouldn't fight back on this.
I can't wait for the Democratic leadership to tell me what's the hill we die on, or when do we not keep our powder dry. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I think it was Jess Dweck on Twitter tweeted, the thing about choosing your battles is that eventually you have to choose a battle. You can't just keep waiting, like eventually there's a battle, right?
Yeah.
But not so far. Okay, let's turn to another horrendous person.
Last night, on the most recent episode of Tucker Carlson's White Supremacy Power Hour, he took issue once again with Ilhan Omar, who just keeps cropping up. For some reason, Tucker Carlson has a problem with her. And he took issue with her not just as an individual, but as a symptom of something worse, as you'll see.
The United States is the kindest, most open-minded place on the planet. The US has done more for other people and received less in return than any nation in history by far. Ilhan Omar has an awful lot to be grateful for. But she isn't grateful, not at all. After everything America has done for Omar and for her family, she hates this country more than ever. In a recent piece in the Washington Post, the reporter put it this way, quote, "In Omar's version, America isn't the big-hearted country that saved her from a brutal war and a bleak refugee camp. It wasn't a meritocracy that helped her attend college or vaulted her into Congress. Instead, it was the country that had failed to live up to its founding ideals, a place that had disappointed her and so many immigrants, refugees, and minorities like her."
Okay, so two things. One is it possible that the country could be wonderful to you and it could be a refuge for you, but you still want to make sure that it lives up to its standards and that it could have failings that you want to address because you actually care for the country rather than hating the country? Had that ever occurred to Tucker Carlson? No. If you ever criticize right-wing oppression of minorities in this country, that's it, you hate us. Who's us, by the way? That's my second point. You'll see in the second clip too, Tucker's always referring to us and we let them into the country. Now, does he mean Muslim Americans? Doesn't sound like it. Does he mean African Americans? Does he mean Latinos? The us always seems to be like us mighty white people. I mean, out of the decency of our heart, we let these people come into our country and they dare criticize us. First of all, Tucker, I got super bad news for you. It's not your country. It's all of our countries. We're all Americans. We're all 100% American. So that's a sad day for you. If you want a state that is purely white or purely Christian, well, you missed the boat, man. There was one country in the middle of Europe that back in the 1930s, they had one race above all. And they were gonna rule for 1,000 years. Too bad it didn't work out for you guys.
I'm really fast taking issue with the we that he loves to throw around. So I know back when that particular group of refugees was brought in from Kenya, he didn't have a show, but if he did, you know a little bit about Tucker. Would he have supported that? Would he have supported bringing those? Because he said we let them in, as if he supports that. I mean, recently, has he been a big proponent of letting refugees come into the US?
Yeah, no, Tucker, you didn't let anyone in. You're 100% against it, including when Ilhan Omar came from Somalia. And you weren't like, oh, you know what? She's suffering in Somalia. Oh my God, we're gonna open our arms to Muslims across the world because we're that caring. No, you're the guy who said don't. You're the guy who said don't. And now they're like, she has the temerity to challenge white rule in America. How dare she? Look, let's go to the second clip because he's gonna make it way clearer. Watch.
Omar isn't disappointed in America. She's enraged by it. Virtually every public statement she makes accuses Americans of bigotry and racism. This is an immoral country, she says. She has undisguised contempt for the United States and for its people. That should worry you, and not just because Omar is now a sitting member of Congress. Ilhan Omar is living proof that the way we practice immigration has become dangerous to this country. A system designed to strengthen America is instead undermining it. Some of the very people we try hardest to help have come to hate us passionately. Maybe that's our fault for asking too little of our immigrants. We aren't self-confident enough to make them assimilate so they never feel fully American. Or maybe the problem is deeper than that. Maybe we're importing people from places whose values are simply antithetical to ours. Who knows what the problem is? But there is a problem. And whatever the cause, this cannot continue. It's not sustainable. No country can import large numbers of people who hate it and expect to survive. The Romans were the last to try that with predictable results. So be grateful for Ilhan Omar, annoying as she is. She's a living fire alarm, a warning to the rest of us that we better change our immigration system immediately or else.
This talk is super dangerous, man. So we're talking about how someone is a danger to the country, a living fire alarm. He's not finishing the sentence, but the sentence is, the last part is super clear. Isn't anybody gonna do anything about it?
He said, or else.
Okay.
Or else doesn't often mean, or else good things will happen. Or else is a threat to you, a threat to your life and to your family.
And when he said she comes from places that maybe have antithetical values to us. Nah, well, you lost all subtlety, Tucker. If you think that's subtle, it is not. She's Muslim. And Muslims cannot be good Americans. Their values are antithetical to American values. Well, you know what we call that? And you can cry all day about it, but we call that racism and bigotry. And now when you say, oh, I can't believe they called me racist when I just said that Muslims are antithetical to America. What? I just hate all Muslims. Is that bigoted now? Yes, it is bigoted. And if you don't like that, go ahead and cry it on Fox News. I don't give a damn. But when he says maybe we were too kind, we should have forced them to assimilate and become fully American. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
What is fully American? Is it someone who eats tacos? Remember Tucker earlier said that tacos are not Mexican, they're American. Okay, great. So what, did Ilhan Omar not eat enough tacos or shawarma or falafel or bagel and lox or pizza or all the different things or frankfurters or hamburgers, all the different things that came to America from different countries? What is fully American? You know what he's saying, it's patently clear. He's saying fully American means we should have made them whiter. Because she's fully American, she's fully Muslim American. Oh, that doesn't count, does it, Tucker? That doesn't count, right? See, that's why we call you racist, because you are, and it's obvious. But look, him inciting people against her is the really dangerous part. He not only incites racism and bigotry against all Muslims and also African Americans. He said, okay, one more thing. He says she hates us passionately. Who's us? She wants justice for African Americans. Please don't shoot African Americans if they're unarmed. I don't think that's an unfair request. I think African Americans are part of us. So that's not hating us, that's protecting us. Tucker, do you think African Americans are part of us? It doesn't sound like it, because when she's going to protect African Americans, you're saying she hates us. You know what, look, he's got a Fox News audience and they're incredibly dumb. So for them, that probably sounds sophisticated. He thinks he's being subtle. So, and then they'll cry about this too. Oh my God, you can't call our audience dumb. Well, they never catch any of your stupid tricks. By the way, he has this faux intellectualism where he says, and the last time it was tried was the Roman Empire, and how did that turn out, right?
Yeah,
that's not true. That's not, what are you talking about?
That was the last time there was immigration. He's only referencing Rome because that's what white supremacists do.
Every time.
They have these weird things about Roman mythology and Norse mythology, and they think pick one or the other and it buttresses the fact why white people are better than everyone else. That's what they do, that's what he's referencing. All of this is just cribbed from Stormfront, that's all it is, and that's why all of those white supremacist groups say that they love his message and he does it better than they do. He's just saying the Somalis shall not replace us. It's the replacement theory, that's all it is. We're bringing in people, they're gonna sleep with your woman and they're gonna kill your kids. That's what he's saying, that's what his show is.
Yeah, and so, God damn it, he's against war and now he's realized, oops, all of our politicians are bought, okay?
He's against that particular war right now. I hate when people say he's against war.
Okay, but he is against that war, and for all the wrong reasons. Remember, he decided he was wrong about the Iraq war, that we shouldn't have gone in because they're just monkeys. So I understand why he's doing it, but I don't care. But he makes it impossible to agree with him when he's such a blatant racist. And again, the guys who are always like, how dare you criticize us, but we are mighty and it is our country and we let you in, etc. The minute you point out the things that are obvious about what they're saying, they're like, he called me racist. Yeah, I'm done with it. You hate Muslims, it's super obvious. You're a total bigot. So I got no interest in that. I'm gonna get,
Just super fast, and we should do a segment at some point. He's making the case, she's not American enough, and I'm the one who decides. Really, like you're talking about the American dream, you wanna talk about which of those two people, Tucker Carlson or Ilhan Omar, are more American? She came in with virtually no advantages whatsoever and worked her way up to the point where she is now an elected representative of the US government. Tucker Carlson was handed a career from his rich, well-connected family. He's been handed a fortune, he's literally an heir. He's never done an actual day of work in his entire life. And his show is just identifying groups of Americans that his singularly old white male audience should hate. That's all it is. There's nothing American about that. Whereas she is a literal example of the American dream that should inspire not only people who were born here, but everyone who hopes to become an American someday.
I'm gonna give Ilhan Omar the last word. She wrote in a tweet in response to this, not gonna lie, it's kind of fun watching a racist fool like this weeping about my presence in Congress. No lies will stamp out my love for this country or my resolve to make our union more perfect. They will just have to get used to calling me Congresswoman. Damn. All right, we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, welcome to TYT Classics episode 3. I've been on 2 of these.
Why are you doing like a douchey CNN voice?
This has been fun. Good night, everybody.
All right, see ya.
Why do I have a giant smile on my face the whole time?
You're enjoying your life.
I'm so excited. I'm like, now I'm like, all right, so I really don't give about this.
I like to think that I'm a good person, but it's possible I've been a terrible person in the past, and I would like to earnestly go back and see if certain things I've said in the past have aged well.
This video where you decided to call your boss a dick on like your 4th day at work.
But see, this is exactly what TYT Classics is about.
Can I just remind you that he started this video saying he's worried that what he used to say would get him in trouble.
The great thing about this is I have no memory of it.
Of course.
None.
I barely remember how I got here. And as soon as I said intellectual courage, I thought, oh, that's good. And then literally 3 seconds later, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
But it's a good turn of phrase.
I didn't know what stress was back then. I really didn't. In fact, sometimes I would think to myself, am I really getting paid for this?
Where the female is on the bottom and the penis one is on the top.
Do you want to try to say that again in a different way? So then telling people, this is the punchline. Old lady's got some.
I can hear the stereotypes coming already.
Should I have said it?
No.
No.
You've come a long way.
Oh, here we go.
When did you leave? When did you leave? Because those were good years. Just saying, you said the title. So you might get Alex Jones and have some things jumping up on your phone. No, I'm not looking at Grandma's butt. I'm not.
Pause. All right, we're back.
Jesus, oh my God, the kiss I could stand, the sweaty palms.
I've never seen a thirstier man in my life.
Rick, this was fun.
I wish I could say the same.
There you go, that's how it's done.
Should we end it now?
I hope we already did.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning and that weren't afraid to say, hey, this is something that is legitimate.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
Brent Welder is a very progressive Democrat. He's a just Democrat, in fact, uncorrupted, not going to take big corporate PAC money. When did you start watching the show and when did you become a member?
So I've been watching for 10 years, an active viewer, but also more importantly, getting out there with causes like Wolf-PAC.
By the end of our campaign, we had organized about 22,000 individual contributions with an average about $27 a piece. And those initial people were a lot of TYT supporters as well.
In looking at the world in a very different way than corporate media does.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
Thank you, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks.
Thank you to TYT and all the progressives around the country that have our backs.
You know, the first and only interviews that we had tonight to do with the Young Turks as well, because you guys have been here from the very beginning, and that's what this night is all about.
And I thank Cenk very much for the very good work that he does.
Thank you so much for all in this together, and the people are so powerful, and we're gonna get it done.
Thank you for your constant support.
It's a pleasure to be with rebels. I like that.
For all of the help that you've given to the Just Democrats, to Wolf-PAC, to help fellow progressives, thank you guys, to all the Young Turks members that make it possible. I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you, or that you were
that it was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
All right, back on the Young Turks. I like this. We keep having new hosts.
Yeah.
Okay, now here comes Brooke Thomas. Alonzo, good to have you back.
Good to be back.
Great to have you
Air
here.
horns. It's like I'm a rap producer.
Yeah. Oh.
You know, I like that. I want my own producer tag. We have to think of one.
Sure.
And then.
Oh, definitely. Are
Okay.
you kidding me? I
We'll
love
think of
nicknames.
one. Okay.
I gave myself the nickname Mysterio today, although he's a villain, so it's a little complicated, and he has a fishbowl on his head.
Okay. All right.
So
So we're gonna work on this.
yes, but I forgot to tell you, Brooke. In Miami, a couple of folks were like talked about how much they love you and how much they want you to go to one of these events. Okay.
I would love to. I would love to, as long as you guys have a day planned for sleep.
Well, that doesn't often happen.
I'm just kidding. I would love to.
Okay, so let me give a couple of comments here, and then we got a lot of stories for you guys. Toothless Busboy writes in from the member section. John said, "Don't expect justice." I wasn't, unfortunately. It reminds me, of course, Tyrion's line. If you came looking for justice, you came to the wrong place. So, unfortunately, that is very true in the Trump administration. And Amira asks, I occasionally have polite Twitter beef with conservatives who keep saying the migrants can leave whenever they want, but I feel like that's not entirely true. Am I wrong? No, you're not remotely wrong. They cannot leave. That's why it's a detention center.
Right.
Okay, it's not at all arguable. That's the thing. We're arguing with people who don't believe in facts and they don't agree to logic. They don't agree to reason. 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. So you're like, it's a detention center. Of course they can't walk out. That's why there's a cage.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, they can. They just want to live there. What are you talking about?
But truth is always a moving target with them, right? Just what a fact is kind of like, well, it depends on what argument I'm making.
Right.
So a detention center becomes a hangout. Right. You know, they're just kicking it for a while. Then they can leave whenever they want.
Yeah, exactly. All right, one more thing, guys. You know about aspiration.com/TYT. That's where you're gonna put your money and feel good about it and make a better return and have no fees, no ATM fees all across the country. And they give away 10% to charity. But speaking of win-wins, you also are gonna get 30 days of Young Turks membership if you sign up there. First, you gotta go to aspiration.com/TYT. And then you do head to tyt.com/free to redeem your membership, okay? So you don't have to move all your money. You can move some of the money there, test it out, see if you like it, get comfortable with it. And I assure you that it'll be a win-win, hence aspiration.com/TYT. All right, Brooke, what do you got for us?
All right, so this is a pretty interesting story. So 4 teens are somewhat finishing up jail sentences after what they call a school prank, but the state of Maryland called a hate crime. Now let me show you a little bit about what they did, because their high school principal describes it as he was one of the first to actually show up on campus and see exactly what these 4 guys spray painted. So just take a look at this. Beneath Principal David Burton's dress shoes, there were swastikas. Spray painted around them were crude drawings of penises. Then Burton saw the letters KKK. He saw the F word again. But that was next to the words Jews, then a homophobic slur, the N word, and also Burton. He kept walking, following the graffiti around the building's perimeter. It was on the sidewalks, the trash cans, the loading dock, the stadium around back. There were more than 100 markings in total, though he says he didn't bother to count. He turned a corner and saw something written in large capital letters on the sidewalk. It said, Burton is an N-word. Now, this happened at Glen Elk High School in Howard County. A little about Howard County in Maryland. It's a suburb between Washington and Baltimore that is extremely diverse, extremely well educated. It's home to a neighborhood called Columbia. It's a planned community. They are founded on the principles of integration and inclusion. People moved their families here for that reputation just as much as for the good schools. And as far as these teens, 4 teens, right? Their names are Seth Taylor, Matt Lipp, Josh Schaefer, and Tyler Curtis. And they all spent 7 minutes, that's how long this video is, all spraying something hateful. Although, interesting part in this, probably not surprising, they all maintain they're not racist.
Of course.
Josh targeted the principal. Matt attacked Jewish, gay, and black people. Tyler drew 2 swastikas, Seth drew swastikas, homophobic slurs, and KKK. Now this is a story that's been reported, but what we learned today is how they got caught. And y'all wanna know how they got caught?
Oh, I love this part of the story.
Right, so the school's Wi-Fi system actually requires students to use individual IDs to get online. After they log in once, Their phones automatically connect whenever they're on campus. So just like that, it's really quick, easy to find out what 4 guys were there after hours. So the students were actually pulled out of graduation and arrested. And while the police were taking one of them out, he realizes that he's gonna walk past a cafeteria where kids are eating. So he says this to the officer: "Can you cover my face so that the kids don't videotape me?" The officer says, "No, you deserve this." And while they kind of maintain that this was just a prank that got out of hand, they have all these people, these pastors, their parents, friends, family friends to come and say they are absolutely not racist. The principal wanted to point out all of the people that this crime actually does affect. The teachers crying in their offices that day, parents refusing to enroll their kids, so pulling kids out of school, before their senior years. The students, how harmful it is to have to go to school in an environment where these kind of thoughts occur with your classmates. His own family, because specifically the day after the graffiti was found, Burton's daughter had come home, collapsed in her mother's arms, sobbing. His wife Katrina knew about the parents who warned Burton to not talk about this incident during his speech at the graduation ceremony, and watched as some of those parents refused to stand and clap for him that day because he mentioned this crime that happened right before graduation, right before the ceremony. So as far as these guys, they all got weekend time in jail, probation, things like that. Their sentences range from I think 8 to 18 weeks, 18 weekends, in jail. And during sentencing, they did actually stand before the judge, pleading guilty to a hate crime, but all refusing to admit that they harbored any hate. Burton said that he wanted to look them in the eye and say, you did something very racist. How you don't think you're racist, I don't know. And there was another part of this story because 2 of the kids talked to the Washington Post today. There was just a couple little parts of the story that were so interesting to me. But one, before the school year started, they hold this, I guess it's kind of like a senior year retreat for kids at a resort. And one of the boys got kicked out that night because he got caught trying to buy alcohol at the bar. The principal comes to one of these kids, one of these seniors, and says, you shouldn't do that. You know why you got kicked out, but I don't want to ruin this moment for you. So I'm gonna let you come back tomorrow and go to the picnic. That kid was the one specifically who wrote Burton is an N-word.
Yeah, and no good deed goes unpunished.
I guess so.
So look, actually the history of this town is amazing, and I want to get back to that in a second. And that's the interesting thing about America and all countries, of course, but we have such an interesting mix of cultures, and I don't mean just different races. I mean different strands of culture at different times in America. So actually, let me go back to how this town got formed right now, because there's an American hero that I didn't know about that I found out about because of the story. His name is James Rouse. He's the one that bought the farmland in that area. And that's what's today Columbia, Maryland. And this was in the early 1960s, before the Fair Housing Act. And they were not allowed, and at that point, interracial marriage was not even legal in Maryland. And he said, no, I'm gonna buy this place. And some of them were former slave plantations. And he bought it and he said, we're going to have whites and blacks here. And we're gonna have, and if you're got interracial marriage, no problem. You're all welcome, and we're gonna do kind of like a mixed utopia, if you will. And they kind of have. So it is very integrated in Columbia, Maryland, and has had great success financially, socioeconomically, culturally, in every way, right? So it's kind of the model of what is the best of us in this country. But in 1964, they finally go to integrate this particular school that this crime happened at. And the part of the story that where I actually teared up a little bit was hearing the old days, right? And so the woman who was the first African American to go to the school is still alive. It's 72-year-old Susan Sands Joseph, and she happened to be watching the news too as this happened in this school. And she was one of the first black students to attend after desegregation, and they threw tomatoes at her as she was coming in, a little kid, and they would dump hot soup in her lap. Okay, and so back then, that was the majority, and it was out in the open. And so they went through that with unbelievable courage, unreal courage. And she kept telling her parents, I'm okay, let's keep going, I'm okay, all right? So now, to have gone backwards now and be in a situation where it's not like the swastikas and the KKK and all that stuff and the N-word didn't exist before in that school or other schools. I live in a very mixed neighborhood in Los Angeles, and we saw a swastika on a sidewalk near us. I got Jewish neighbors, and I saw, even a neighbor with not swastikas or anything like that, but QAnon bumper sticker, etc. So we know it's always been around, but I think that the reason that those kids did that, no matter, even if you take it their best case scenario, you believe them, we're just doing a prank, etc. They knew that they had some degree of permission to put those swastikas and KKK and the N-word all over the school, because it was starting to be okay again to make it public. And it's devastating to me that we've gone back to that time now.
Well, this bothers me on so many levels. First of all, I'll say it because I can't stand N-word.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Okay.
They wrote nigger. That's what they wrote. And they called the principal a nigger, and they wrote fags and F Jews and all. I mean, I don't like trying to make racism gentle. One of the things that came up repeatedly in this article is people don't want to call them racist. Why not? That's what they are.
It's completely what they are.
Stop trying to make it, this is white privilege. These 4 kids, once they complete their probation and their community service, this entire thing gets removed from their records. Like it never happened, because they always, when it's white kids, they always worry, what about their future? They got to go to college. Well, you know what? They're criminals. They're guilty of a hate crime. So leave it on their record. And they talked about, we didn't know what the Holocaust was. We didn't know what swastikas meant. Bullshit. They know what it meant. You're graduating from high school. You know what the KKK was. So my big problem is trying to, no pun intended, whitewash this and make it gentler than what it is. These are horrible kids, okay? Where their parents like, we didn't raise them that. I don't care. I don't care what they learned. They did it. They're stupid like every other racist. They get caught because they're dumb.
Right.
They're carrying your phone, and your phone is easily tracked. Good, you caught them. Call them racist. And again, this is one of those situations, flip it, okay? Black and Mexican kids tag a high school, hundreds of tags all over a high school saying, we hate white people, crackers, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now let's see, you think the black and Mexican kids would go to court and get a few weekends in jail and get their community service and then their records clean? No, they would have went to jail. They would have went to adult prison for a hate crime. Imagine if it had been Muslim kids. In today's environment, imagine if Muslim kids had done this. They'd be on Guantanamo Bay. They'd be in Gitmo as terrorists or something. So what really bothers me about this is this whole senior prank, they just made a mistake. No, how about some real penalty? Man up. If you're gonna be a racist, man up, go to prison and join the Aryan Nation. You want to be a real racist, go join real racists. Don't come in when you get caught and say, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm just a child. No, I don't buy it.
So to your point about a Muslim kid, if they had done the exact same thing, drawn swastikas all across a school, you think the judge is like, I'm so worried about the Muslim kid's future. I'm gonna make sure that only on the weekends, and we're gonna expunge the record right after it's over, okay? Look, I wish we lived in a more merciful country, and then we could have a conversation about, wait, should we show these kids mercy like we show other kids mercy? But we don't show other kids mercy. Remember what Donald Trump said about the Central Park Five? Remember, they were kids. They were actually younger than these guys. And he said, execute them.
And they were innocent.
And they were innocent.
They were innocent. That's the big difference. The Central Park Five were innocent.
And Trump not only wanted them executed at the time, but even after he found out that they were innocent, he said, what were they doing in the park anyway? They must have been up to no good. So even if you're an innocent minority kid, Trump says, who cares? Keep him in prison anyway.
Kill him.
And then, so if we had fairness and people were like, oh my God, look, so whether they're Mexican or black or Muslim or whatever it is, let's show mercy, let's show compassion to kids that are under 18 and they're stupid and they can learn a mistake, and we got a fair society, then we're having a conversation. But in this society where we crush the other races and honestly, socioeconomic conditions definitely matter, and so the poor are at a great disadvantage. But if you have wealth and you are white, all of a sudden the whole court system opens up to, my God, what about their future? Come on, man.
The other thing, I'm sorry.
You sure?
No, the only other point I wanted to address, Cenk, is when you said we're going back. We're not going back.
I cringed too.
This never went away. This has never gone away.
No,
they're emboldened now. They're talking black, but it never
these
went
things
away.
in high school in Oklahoma. This never went away.
No, I both agree with you guys and slightly disagree. So here's what I mean. Did it ever go away? Of course not. So I agree with you guys on that. But like I said, people would write it a little and then run away.
Like
right?
they're quieter about it.
They didn't have permission to make it so. They put 100 on there, right? It wasn't something scribbled on a bathroom wall and you run out. And so has that been around forever? Of course it has. But look, I know from my personal experience, and every experience is different. That's why I started talking about how the different strands of the culture are fascinating. When my dad got here as a Muslim immigrant, everybody he encountered was wonderful to him. Like now when I tell the stories, people almost can't believe it.
Yeah.
So everybody embraced him, and they're like, and they helped him in graduate school. They took him on vacations. He went to the White House, etc. So now at the same time, that was the 1960s where other Americans were being terrible to African Americans. So there's this weird disconnect, right? Now we've decided, no, Muslims are also bad, okay, and maybe the worst. So now you got Tucker Carlson talking about people from places like where Ilhan Omar came from. Maybe they're antithetical to our values. So now it's especially when it comes to Muslims, it has definitely gone backwards. And in terms of making it public and having it be acceptable, that's what I mean by it's gone backwards. Where some people are now emboldened, they're like, "What? Oh, good, I get to come out of the closet." And so this is people coming out of the closet.
There's just one thing that I wanted to say, because I think a lot of, not what we're saying, but just the story in general is focused on what you guys were mentioning, that they got weekends in jail and how that is really about, like, we don't want to ruin their lives. They get to pull up to jail on Friday evening in their car, get out, spend the weekend in jail. They didn't go to prison, they went to jail. And and this is all gonna be over for them. But also, like, the trauma that this affected, their LGBTQ classmates, their Black classmates, their Jewish classmates. That trauma of showing up on your graduation day and seeing hundreds of these markings, that's gonna last longer than their jail sentence.
Well,
it's horrible.
Said, so many markings that they, even with a sandblaster, they couldn't clean them all up by the time graduation started. Like, the whole staff started cleaning and they couldn't get it done.
And so let me leave it on this. The Washington Post story talks about how it was a reminder, the vandalism was, of an age-old threat, they said. You don't belong here. And that's why these guys coming out of the closet and now being emboldened and spray painting the whole school with against Jews and Blacks and gay Americans, etc. Because they've been emboldened to say we are back in charge and you don't belong here. So when you talk about the trauma, it isn't like, I got called names when I was a kid, I got thick skin, etc., and everybody reacts to it differently. This is a mass movement saying you are the others, you are not part of us. And so whether it's Tucker Carlson on air saying we allowed them in and now they have been bad to us, right? Or these guys doing this vandalism, it's a sign to every Black kid in that school and every Jewish kid, etc. You're not one of us, and we are still in charge. Well, so in a sense, you got a little bit of justice here. I think it probably deserved a little bit more. And to say, no, this is not your country. We all live here, we're all Americans, and we gotta figure out how to live together. But if you're upset that you don't get to rule over us anymore, that's a sad day for you. And so we've got to assert ourselves politically, etc., to make sure not that we are superior like the bad old days, but that everyone is equal. And if that bothers you, well, then you're a bad person and you're un-American, because that's not what America's about. All right, we got to take a break. All right, let's come right back.
Despite the fact that we get a lot of mean, hateful, hurtful tweets about old school, we're gonna put all the nice ones together and read them to you.
Came in late to watch TYT Old School, and I hear Cenk Uygur talking about napkins. Is this the kind of nonsense Anna Kasparian was talking about? Gotta love membership privileges. Gotta love them.
Please have Dave on every 4 episodes or so. Hashtag colorisms, hashtag no cheese.
Yay! I love old school.
Watching Ben Mankiewicz and Cenk Uygur on Old School talking is exactly like watching Seinfeld and George. I'm not sure if that's a compliment.
I just finished watching season 3 of Narcos and looks like Michael Schur has a huge role in it. Is that really Michael?
Couple things about this video. Dave Kohler looks so badass.
Loving Emma Vigeland after last night's Old School. Did I mention that was my first Old School? Fucking awesome. I agree. They're pretty awesome.
Who's on Old School today? Is there one? At Dave Kohler. I hope it's not Brett Ehrlich.
This episode of Old School has killed me. Who knew a conversation about good and bad underwear could be so hilarious and relatable? Hashtag one last ride. Animals are innocent, dude. There's more than a 73% chance this Old School will be really funny. Cenk Uygur has been up since 4 a.m., so he's tired. Hence, everything will seem funnier to him. P.S. Remember, food talk, new words, and no or very little politics.
Dave Kohler, enjoyed performance on Old School. Can we please hear about your time as a geologist? One geologist to another, hashtag geology.
Can someone please inform Ben that his hair is too organized for Old School? It needs to be slightly shuffled about or something to look slightly unkempt. It's making me uncomfortable. That's what Old School's all about, being unkempt. Great show, guys. I wish Old School went on a lot longer. It's already like 2.5 hours. How much longer can we go?
Old School is a lot of fun, and I appreciate that all these people enjoy it because I know Cenk loves to do it, and he does it because he knows the fans love it too.
My name is Amber Mueller. I'm a graphic designer at TYT. I'm working on the Hostmates thing, special coverage for members, and main show stuff, like always. We create like a logo for special events and then go in and create the vertical monitor wall that everybody sees in the background and the main monitor wall, some animations, and then we should be all set for the whole show.
What is this for?
This is for Mary wanted marijuana to be Bongo Cat. In my free time, I paint and exercise and hang out with people and go to shows.
What's your favorite thing at TYT?
My favorite thing? There's too many favorite things.
Field goal here. It's time to switch to beer.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Do your best.
He's a little like... Let's go!
Oh. No one's happy now.
Give him another try.
Oh!
Wow. This is the weirdest game.
Oh my God, that was intense.
All right, back on the Young Turks. I just checked wolf-pac.com/film, 18,105. The executive director of Wolf-PAC is going to be here in the next hour. I'm going to interview him as well as Greg Palast, who's a great reporter. And also tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern, I'm going to be on Cuomo Prime Time on CNN. I'm going to be breathing fire about Acosta and Epstein. So don't miss that. I don't know who's going to try to stand in my way, but it's not going to work out for them. Okay, so Wellington Smith writes in from the member section, Alonzo, bless you. Thank you for speaking the truth about white privilege. Groovin Granny says this behavior is taught at home. The dad of one of the kids came in and said, I'm so sorry, I didn't teach this at home, but I should have taught him better the history of the KKK and the history of the Holocaust, and it's my fault that I didn't teach him better. And the principal was like, no, we taught that pretty thoroughly at school.
It's high school. And also let me apologize for using the actual words because the people came in and said that, there's like rules, like I guess like FCC or something like that. So if anyone flipped out, I'm sorry, but in the context of the story,
yeah, nobody's flipping out because I think it's also your prerogative
It's not flipping
too.
out. Nobody cares. The actual audience doesn't care. There's just rules based on the law. So there's nothing we can do about it. All right. Anyway, believe me, we say that all the time. Okay.
Not that. You didn't say that all the time.
No, not the N-word.
No. But they've been cussing.
They've been cussing.
Yeah. The curse for this is the absurdity of it. Legally, the curse is a bigger problem than the N-word.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all right, last thing. Philip says racists are insecure and need someone or a group of people to look down on in order to feel better about themselves. Think about the most racist regions in the world and look at the insecurity of their population, i.e. the American South. Look, one thing here, real quick, because we've got to go on other stories, is that they keep assuming subconsciously, I think, if they're in charge, they're gonna do what we did. And so I just wanna tell them, just calm down, man. They're not, okay? And so, but that's why they're in a panic. We're losing our country, we gotta make America great again, we gotta make America ours again, right? That's why they flipped out on Obama and wait till they get a load of Warren or Sanders, and they're gonna get angrier and angrier. But progressives are not as mean as you guys. Don't worry. Okay, all right, what's next?
Don't worry, right? All right, let's get to it.
Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Yeah, that is Donald Trump there at his $1.7 million Independence Day event last week. And just so you know, the mayor of DC says Trump's 4th of July celebration bankrupted DC. Specifically, I'm talking about a special fund used to protect the nation's capital from terrorist threats and provide security at events such as rallies and state funerals. And just in case, you're probably like, wait, how did it cost that much? We've been telling you, but just take a look at just part of the ridiculous reasons why this costs so much.
Costs $10,000 an hour to fly a single Blue Angels jet. There are 6 in the formation, but the team travels with 2 additional jets, bringing us to 8, and a C-130, referred to commonly as Fat Albert. The F-35 fighter jet costs $30,000 an hour to operate, just in terms of fuel, and a plane that's used for Air Force One's fleet costs $140,000 an hour.
That is wild. Anyway, Mayor Muriel Bowser of DC says she wants the money back stat. In a letter to the president Tuesday, DC Mayor Bowser warned that the fund has now been depleted and is estimated to be running a $6 million deficit by September 30th. The mayor also noted the account was never reimbursed for $7.3 million in expenses from Trump's 2017 inauguration. The thing is, he is not gonna authorize the State Department to send this money back to them. It's just horrifying that it seems like it's a fairly important fund.
Yeah, so I have a solution as always. I don't want to just do critiques. I want to be constructive about it.
Okay.
So there's different batches of money, right? So there's the money that the military spends on the planes. The reason Washington DC has to spend a lot of money is for security. So because Trump politicized it, then there became right-wing rallies, and then there was counter protests, and then that forces Washington to bring out all the cops to make sure that they don't kill one another, like happened in Charlottesville. So now they're spending a ton of money that they didn't expect. In fact, they spent 6 times as much money on this as they would on a normal 4th of July that we've always had in this country. So my solution is don't do it anymore. So if I'm the mayor of Washington, I'm like, oh no, I'm super happy to do it, and I got to provide security, etc. But you are not reimbursing me like you are legally supposed to. So I'll do it the minute you reimburse me. So what? Look, Trump made it way worse and bankrupted them as usual. He's bankrupted himself 6 times, so he thought, why not Washington? But One of the other things that put him over the top was the state funeral of George H.W. Bush. So now it's hard when foreign dignitaries come, et cetera, no matter what, DC cops have to protect them, right? But the next time a fancy politician dies, that's when the mayor should be like, no, we're not doing it. So you pay us the money you owe us legally, so to provide security, et cetera, and then we'll do the funeral. Until then, go bury him somewhere else.
Well, unfortunately, this is just another case of Trump not paying contractors. To put it simple, that's what his business model is, right? Get the work done, and then I'm not gonna pay you, or I'm gonna pay you pennies on the dollar. And with his whole campaign, they've done this to other cities where they hold these rallies. Orlando just recently had a big thing where you owe us a ton of money from your rally. So, you know what, going along the lines of what you said, have the donors pay for it. If you want to have this, because this wasn't a July 4th celebration, this wasn't a celebration of America, this was Trump's ego. So have his rich donors pay for it up front. If you're gonna have this party, this parade, whatever, you got to give us the money up front to pay for it. Now the military jets and so forth, you can't pay for, but like you said, the police and all of that. I used to work at this Irish bar on Sunset. It was a huge bar. And every year on St. Patrick's Day, they had to pay the West Hollywood police for extra police protection, like up front. West Hollywood was like, you cannot hold your, because it was a huge party, they're like, you can't hold your party unless you pay us for the extra police up front. That's what you do on this. If he wants to make it a political rally, one of his Trump rallies, then up front, it's like, we're gonna need the money, or no permits, no, nothing.
And that bar, my guess is, had a good track record of paying people. Trump has literally one of the worst track records in American history for paying people. What Alonzo's talking about is that's his business model. Almost every time after you perform the work, he goes, I'm not gonna pay you. And they go, what do you mean you're not gonna pay me? And then he negotiates you down and goes, ha, sucker.
Right.
You should have never trusted me. Okay, deal. I don't. So you, from now on, and this is what you do with deadbeats. You pay up front. Otherwise, you don't get the service. So that's what Washington, D.C. should start doing with this deadbeat.
But you know, these are great ideas, but is it gonna happen? Because he's gonna say no. And so, or just ignore the request. And so do they get down to crunch time and just call his bluff and just not have any police show up? That'll never happen. And so.
You're right, they can't do that, but they can try to do something. They could even close it off, say, hey, you can't come here, right? This area is closed off. You can use the police to say no one's coming in because we can't secure the area. And there are ways to get.
I like that idea.
Really good idea.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, you just say, no, this park is closed, or the mall, or wherever it is, because we can't secure this area. And you know, when they start throwing around the word terrorist, then the rules get pushed to the side, right? Then they can start doing whatever they want. So we'll see how it goes, but this establishes a bad precedent.
See, that's why I went to the funeral, because the funeral is totally optional, right? And since with politicians, they're so full of themselves, they're like, oh, we have to have a funeral, Morning Joe's gonna cover it. Okay, fine, we'll pay. I guarantee you they'll pay if that's the situation.
And the donors will cover it, because to a lot of these donors, this isn't a lot of money, and it's another way to get in with whoever it might be, whether it be a politician who passed away, or Trump, or whatever. To them, kicking out a couple of $1 million so I can stand next to him and get my picture taken isn't a big deal. So
100% right. And last thing I'll add, because Alonzo got such a good idea, better idea than mine. Like, look, you can't do the mall. That's too expensive, and we ran out of money because of you. It's too expensive to protect the entire mall in Washington, right? So we're gonna do it in a more confined space. And you know what? This will get you an opportunity to emulate your hero. His hero is Andrew Jackson, the populist president who murdered all the Native Americans. So, you know what Andrew Jackson did and why he was considered a populist? Because he let the American people into the White House. Well, that part was nice, okay? So, Trump, you can have your celebration inside the White House. And let your alt-right guys go in there, let the counter-protesters in there. You'll be just like Andrew Jackson, it'll be great. You wanna do it inside your house? Didn't think so.
Right.
I think there's also a golf course nearby that they could trample.
I got an idea.
Mar-a-Lago.
Mar-a-Lago. Let's bring it down to Mar-a-Lago.
He pays those bills.
That's right. And so boom, there you go. You want next 4th of July, we'll come down to Mar-a-Lago, okay?
Yeah, I like it.
And of course, what do you mean? These average Americans didn't pay $200,000 to get into Mar-a-Lago. He's such a con artist, scam artist. All right, we got to take a break. Last break, right? Okay, now when we come back, there's a couple of really interesting stories. Come right back. You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitsing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here. This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet. What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
We're gonna do a little thing we like to call Weekly World News. Weekly World News. I cull stories from around the globe, stories that aren't covered on the main show or aren't covered enough, and I turn it into a 5-question quiz for Dave and Steve. All right, do we have our answers? A from Dave and C from Steve. And the correct answer is B, an oil tanker that sank off the coast of China. Okay, we have one answer of B and one answer of C. What is the correct answer? It is, of course, A, an airplane wing walking stunt gone wrong. Okay, we have an answer of A from Dave and C from Steve. The correct answer is B. We have an answer of B and C. What is the correct answer in true Weekly World News tradition? It's A.
Come on.
Taking the bear out for ice cream.
That can't possibly be true. We're terrible today. Just terrible.
Public opinion, your opinion, has zero effect on public policy. The richest people in the country, their opinion has a direct effect.
Leslie Byrne, a Democrat from Virginia, describes that when she went to Congress, she was told by a colleague, quote, always lean to the green. And to clarify, she went on, he was not an environmentalist.
Our government actively serves the richest and the most powerful and turns its back on everyone else.
Finally end the corruption and get money out of politics and give us back our democracy.
I want to tell you about VPNs because they're awesome. You'll be on the internet, you'll be searching, and with NordVPN, which is one of our sponsors, you're able to protect yourself from some bad actors online. And we know that there are lots of bad actors online. So since you watched the show, we're giving you guys an awesome deal. You get 75% off for 3 years, guys. Not just 1 year, not 2 years, 3 years. And then you also get 1 month for free. So go to nordvpn.com/TYT and you'll get that awesome offer.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk Alonso and Brooke with you guys. My iPad's down, so Brooke, take it away.
All right, take it away. All right, so US Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta actually wants to slash government funds for, wait for it, child sex trafficking victims. So let's put this in perspective a little bit better. We're talking about Acosta, right? The man who is currently under fire for having granted Jeffrey Epstein immunity from federal prosecution in 2008. That is the billionaire who was being investigated for having run a child sex trafficking ring. This same person is proposing the $8 million. And the proposed reduction is so drastic that experts say it would effectively kill off many federal efforts to curb sex trafficking and put the lives of large numbers of children at risk. So of course,
50% going before Congress advocating for that. Why should people trust you to focus on human trafficking and protect victims if you've done that? And I'd like a follow-up question.
So you're referring to grants that go to foreign countries for foreign country labor-related work. As part of the budget every year, those grants have been removed, as have other grants for foreign countries. And let me just add, as part of the budget every year, those grants are put right back in by Congress. This is what happens in Washington, and I fully suspect that those grants will remain in this year.
Okay, just to give you an idea of just a part of what this department does to combat child sex trafficking, the International Labor Affairs Bureau's Office of Child Labor, Forced Labor, and Human Trafficking actually has several functions, including producing an annual authoritative congressionally mandated report on child labor and human trafficking globally, as well as maintaining a list of products and source countries that the office has reason to believe use child and forced labor, and more on internationally. It also helps fund programs in countries through civil society organizations and other non-governmental groups to address the root of child labor and trafficking, according to a source with knowledge of the Bureau's operation.
So let's break down his pathetic excuses.
Right,
yeah, so he says, well, I mean, we cut a fund that goes to other countries. Yeah, because of it's child trafficking. So if they're coming from other countries, we would need to be able to spend money in those countries to prevent the children from getting trafficked into our country. So he makes it sound like, oh man, they wanted to help some countries that are in Timbuktu and et cetera. And what's it got to do with us? No, it's child trafficking into our country. That's why we're trying to spend the money to prevent that. And by the way, I mean, him saying like, who cares if they're kidnapping kids and making them sex slaves in other countries?
Right.
And even if it comes into our country, who cares? Okay. Oh well, I'm not sure that was a defense that's helping your case. I don't think that helps you at all. And then he says, it's okay. Congress puts it back in. Yeah, the Democrats insist on putting it back in. You're the son of a bitch who cut it in the first place. So so why don't you not cut it? He's like, yeah, I'm a monster, but it's okay. There's actually, believe it or not, decent people in Washington, and they put the money back in that I monstrously tried to cut. And look, if your other excuse, he didn't use this excuse, but if your other excuse is, well, we didn't have money left. Why don't you have money left? Because you just gave $2 trillion in tax cuts to the rich. Mm-hmm. So then those kids become collateral damage. Because after they gave all the money to the rich, they go, I don't have any money for child trafficking, so I'm not gonna stop that. This is the party that claims they're for a rule of law. Remember what Trump said in the convention? He said, I alone can protect you. I guess he meant that to his donors. I alone can give you these giant tax cuts. The children, I'm not gonna protect at all. I don't give a damn about them. That's who Donald Trump and Alexandra Acosta are.
And
go ahead.
So just really quickly, more on as far as this administration, one of the main excuses they were given when we found out they were ripping children away from their parents at the border was that, well, we're not totally sure. Some of these kids are being trafficked and we're trying to protect them. So we have to separate them because we don't even know, these parents don't have the paperwork. We don't know if they're actually parents. So they were saying they were worried about child trafficking while simultaneously plotting to cut more than like 80% of the budget that actually protects children from child human trafficking. That's wild.
This whole thing, it's incomprehensible. This goes back to what we were talking about off air about living in an alternate reality. We're talking about people who have sex with children.
Right.
That's the lowest you can be. And just that there's any debate of should they be protected, should we spend, when did we get to that point that we even debate this? Well, of course we should spend money to stop child trafficking. Of course, anyone involved should be in prison. Epstein and anyone who protects them or makes excuses for them like Acosta. Like there's no, this is the worst thing they say, like amongst prisoners, right? If prisoners are our worst people, this is the one sin they don't forgive. you go to prison and you've been doing something to kids, they have to put you in a protected place, because if they throw you in the general population, you're done. I don't know how we can even debate or talk about this. I mean, I know we have to, but it's like the idea, hey, let's cut the budget that protects children from sex trafficking. What?
Yeah.
And that would be the Christian party.
Yes, that's right. And Acosta, on top of all that, I mean, he's the guy who let Epstein out, as Brooke talked about. The guy got a 13-month prison sentence where 6 out of the 7 days he was allowed to work because he's rich. So nobody who goes to prison is allowed to work, even though they actually have to put food on the table for their family. And they're like, oh, but he's rich, so we let him out for 16 hours a day. And then on top of that, knowing that he protected a child molester before, he still goes and cuts the budget by 80% for child traffickers. I mean, there's nowhere near a conscience here. And then today he came out and did a press conference trying to defend himself, because the only thing they care about is protecting themselves, not the kids or anything else. And he said about Epstein, he's a bad man and he needs to be put away.
He could have been put away.
By you, by you. You were the prosecutor who let him off. And then he has the temerity to come out here and says he needs to be put away. He also said a couple of things in the press conference that now lawyers are saying, why did you say that? Epstein's lawyers are gonna use it as a defense for Epstein. So they never cared, and now he's doing more damage to the cause of justice. It's maddening. All right, guys, we got great guests coming up for you, including Greg Palast talking about racial discrimination in the country. Everybody check out the AlonzoBowden.com, because Alonzo's gonna be in Vegas this weekend at the Link. So check that out, everybody. Thank you, Alonzo, for joining us.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. We'll be right back. Mainstream media hates us.
You are confusing democratic socialism with socialism.
They can't stand progressives. 2020, will you cover progressive candidates that run uncorrupted? Well, I got news for them. We're gonna attack back.
Was the blood of my classmates and my teachers worth your blood money?
Stephon Clark was shot and killed in his own backyard. Israeli soldiers used live ammunition and tear gas.
The bombing campaign has begun in Syria.
She burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye.
This is a brilliant video and an excellent social commentary.
The United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
Two totally self-obsessed megalomaniacs.
They had a great chemistry.
They go, but I need a boogeyman. Immigrants! Immigrants are the problem.
This notion that they have welfare checks waiting for them at the border is also preposterous.
There's already walls to a building. You don't need to put a cage inside unless you want to cage people.
You know what death epidemic is happening in our country? Gun violence.
Another young African-American male who was unarmed, shot and killed. I have no idea if we'll ever receive justice. Now there's 5 people laying down on the ground
People keep dying every day. When are we gonna do something about it?
Sacha Baron Cohen, at times, just flat out genius.
There was no collusion. I didn't know the president. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk.
There's infinite amounts of universe and there's alternate universe.
The Saudi crown prince ordered the murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
I don't make deals with Saudi Arabia. I don't have money from Saudi Arabia.
This is a circus.
Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling. I believed he was going to rape me.
The country is dealing with yet another massacre, this time in Thousand Oaks, California.
Shooting at a synagogue in Pittsburgh. 11 people were killed there.
The Chicago shooting at Mercy Hospital.
Multiple fires in the state of California have claimed the lives of dozens of people.
Black people existing is not suspicious.
It's so tone deaf to tell people of color that very few people are racist when we gotta watch our sons die on the streets every week.
It is important to note that these minors are very well taken care of.
A 7-year-old migrant died on American soil.
Don't believe the press.
They let that 7-year-old girl die. Your heart goes out to them? What heart?
We do need a people-led revolution. Revolution meaning getting involved, getting engaged.
2018 was the question mark we thought it was gonna be. 2019 is the year of the fight.
College-bound high schoolers, purpose-driven, and they haven't stopped.
We will vote to arm our teachers with funds, not guns.
Amazon has just announced their employees will now be making $15 an hour.
Senator Warren, great to have you here on a day that you introduced the Anti-Corruption and Public Integrity Act.
Someone said TYT or CNN? TYT.
Big changes in terms of diversity in Congress that looks more like America, finally. Rashida Tlaib is going to be sworn in on Thomas Jefferson's Quran, which is both amazing historically and also will cause many right-wing heads to simply explode.
You gotta believe. And especially in an era like this, the more we come together, the better we're all gonna be and the stronger we're all gonna be.
What's awesome about this march is it's hopeful.
If there's a book that you want to read but it hasn't been written yet, you must be the one to write it.
Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. That's what this country's supposed to stand for. All right, back on the Young Turks. Now joining me, Mike Minetta, National Director for Wolf-PAC. Mike, great to have you back in the studio. Wolf-PAC is a nonpartisan organization to get money out of politics or to end the corruption. There's a lot of different ways to end the corruption, and obviously we've talked a lot about this. Most of our viewers know it. It's to get an amendment and have a convention and discuss those different ways to end the corruption. Now, you guys are doing a movie. That's the part that's a little different, right?
Totally new for us.
Yes, so why is a group trying to get an amendment doing a movie?
Well, in short, to let more people know that there's a way to actually fix this problem. Right now, we've got over 50,000 volunteers, but we need more. We need more people to come into this movement. And honestly, I think people need to know that we don't have to just wait around on Congress. We don't have to wait for the Supreme Court to get this done. And that's a big part of what drew me initially to Wolf-PAC, as a volunteer in the beginning. There's a lot of groups out there, there's a lot of plans, but the thing that drew me the most to Wolf-PAC's plan was that we can take matters into our own hands to solve this. And when we talk about waiting on Congress, I mean, you're talking about a body of government that has a lower approval rating than some diseases, right? And that's a lot of people is just their plan is to let's hope that we get 2/3 of them to want to change the way that they got elected into power. So that never really seemed realistic to me. And just I guess to give the audience, anyone who might not have the full background, why Wolf-PAC exists, why this option that we're pursuing exists. It goes all the way back to 1787, to the initial convention in Philadelphia that drafted our Constitution.
Hold on, Mike. So I want to get to talk about that convention because it was really dangerous. So by the way, if you guys want to contribute, this is a multi-million-dollar project. So we need just 3 or 4 million. I'm kidding. It's only 50,000, and you can make a compelling movie that gives people hope about how to fix this thing. Wolf-PAC.com/film. Okay, Wolf-PAC.com/film. It's right there on the screen. We'll have it as a link down below. You can just click on that link if you're watching later on YouTube or Facebook or any of the platforms. And by the way, it's already past $18,000, so almost like just in 24 hours.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we're really, really getting there, and I really want to give a shout out later to folks who've given money to that, and thank you for your wonderful contributions. But Mike, the opponents, and there's opponents to this process because they say a convention is dangerous, often point back to that original convention, and not just Republicans, but Democrats. That's why you guys are, I mean, you are the most nonpartisan group there is, because both the corrupt Democrats and the corrupt Republicans are not on your side and fight you vigorously. They go, that convention was so dangerous, it produced the greatest document known to man.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Well, opposition from any way you look at it doesn't make sense. But for us to explain that to people is a little bit exhausting, honestly. Right now, it's Wolf-PAC against the world, as you know, right?
Yep.
And thankfully, we have the most resilient volunteers in the world. Look, it takes about 45 minutes, I would say, to give someone all of the background about a convention, why we're doing it, why they should feel comfortable with it, and that's why we want to make a film, because we want to go talk to these experts who know about this process, and that includes our volunteers, by the way. Our volunteers have read, a lot of them, all of the peer-reviewed reports done by the Department of Justice, Congressional Research Service, American Bar Association. I mean, our volunteers are the most educated, and I would say in the entire country, they're more educated than most college professors on this issue. So we want to talk to them.
Yeah, so Mike, I don't even think that's arguable. So unfortunately, everybody says that fixing our elections is the #1 issue. I don't think hardly anyone means it, because, okay, then what's your plan? Like, it's hard, right? Yeah, we know it's hard. So, but if you give up, that means we're never gonna win on any issue that you care about, whether you're progressive and you say, look, I really want Medicare for all because I don't want my kid getting cancer and then we don't have money for it, and et cetera. That's a cruelty I cannot stand, or someone else's kid getting it. Or you're a conservative and you care about balanced budgets. When's the last time they ever balanced the budget? They're not gonna do it, right? Why? Because crony capitalism. But then you go say, okay, how are you gonna fix it? Everybody's like,
well, just look at the Democratic debates. I think it was the very last one where I think it was Chuck Dodd who said, what's the one thing, if you can only do one thing in your administration, what would it be? I am still surprised that wasn't the only answer that every single candidate gave. Like, I'm blown away by that. Like, they're talking about doing their pet issues still and ignoring that it doesn't matter. Really, you're gonna do your one thing and then let everything else not get accomplished because you're not gonna fix the corruption first. It is astonishing that more people don't fully grasp that.
Yeah, look, I actually think some of the Democrats have interesting policies, like Kirsten Gillibrand talks about, Andrew Yang talks about democracy dollars, give everybody in America $100 to give the politicians because it empowers you and not the corporations and not the incredibly wealthy. Kirsten Gillibrand said, oh yeah, let's make it $600. So that's an interesting proposal. At least she's thinking about it, and at least that's a plan. Yeah. Bernie Sanders said at the end of the debate, what good are any of these plans if we can't ever pass them? But honestly, his plank is a little mediocre on this. And so all of these politicians, whether they're Democrats, and look at the Republican side. Trump said, drain the swamp. And that's the #1 problem. People love that, that's why they voted for Trump. He went on stage, his most popular line was, I already bought everybody on the stage. I gave them money and they did exactly what I wanted. Republican voters loved that because they knew that it was true. So what is Trump doing about it? Nothing. And so look, when you say the volunteers know better, they know way better. Our volunteers know way better than the politicians. And unfortunately, a lot of the professors, they stop at, Did you know that the original Constitutional Convention ran away?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, no wonder you became a professor, dog. Okay, and so and that's not the real story, and that's why the movie is going to tell the real story.
Yeah, and it's important for people to realize that it's not about one person anyway. It's not about one politician. No one person is going to be able to solve this problem. It's just too massive. And so we have to build a movement, right? And that's why this film is important, because people do need to realize that if we follow this path, we can actually end this corruption. We can do it. And it's following historical precedents. We've done this before. You know, this goes back all the way to the Bill of Rights. Congress did not want to propose those 10 amendments. New York and Virginia called for a convention to be able to propose them, and Congress just said, all right, let's do it. And then that has continued all the way throughout our history. The 17th Amendment that's the most parallel situation that we have to today, because people looked at the US Senate as corrupt. It was very overt corruption. They used to leave bags of cash at state houses, and the state legislatures would appoint who they wanted to the US Senate. People hated it, so they used every tool they had. They did petitions, state level legislation, ballot referendums, resolutions asking Congress, all the things that are happening right now around this movement of corruption. But it wasn't until they came in one by one and started applying for a convention to be able to address that one issue where Congress finally did it. And they got all the way to just one state shy of the 2/3 needed to force a convention.
So I love it. So look, there's a lot of good folks who are working on this issue, and they mean well. But guys, unless you have the convention as an option, they ain't gonna do it. The guys who were getting bags of money back in the day before the 17th Amendment, you think they were gonna voluntarily give away their power? No, but when the convention came up as a possibility, they're like, oh yeah, we meant direct election of senators. Of course we did. No, you don't do it, we do it, so we take credit. And here in this case, it's actually better, in a sense, easier, because you're gonna liberate those politicians. They actually hate doing the donor calls for 4 or 5 hours a day. Imagine how grueling and demeaning that is. Please give me money, I will serve you, I will serve you, please give me money. For 4 to 5 hours every single day. And I actually think the corruption today is worse than it was back then. Because back then it was still illegal. You had to commit a crime to do it. Now we legalize the bribery, and we celebrate politicians like Nancy Pelosi who go, oh, I got the most bribes. I brought in over $500 million worth of bribes to the Democratic Party, and that's why I should be the leader. And they agree, and they make her leader.
Yep, right? That's the system in Congress right now. And again, though, to go back to 1787, at the end of that convention in Philadelphia, Congress was going to be the only body of government that could propose amendments to change the Constitution. And one of them stood up, George Mason, and he said, hold on, there's a flaw here. What if Congress becomes the problem, right? What if Congress is, corrupt and is oppressive? Then we've got to give people another way to be able to amend this document. And that's when they put in the state-based route into our Constitution. So there are some people that want to void that part of the Constitution and say, no, we should just trust Congress. And to us, that seems really naive. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And by the way, we don't have time. This is an extremely urgent issue at this point. I mean, we have people dying, and I always go back to this one example of kids that are dying because they're rationing their insulin. I just can't even wrap my head around that. And insulin was, I'm sure you know the story, the patent was sold for $1 because the inventors wanted to make sure that everyone who needed it had it. And that has turned into this disgusting, corrupt system here where they're upcharging for that drug by like 18,000%. And we have 22-year-old kids dying because of it. So we don't have time to wait on this system of government and Congress.
Let alone climate change. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, 45,000 people die. 45,000 people die every single year because they don't have health insurance. That's unreal. That's Vietnam level deaths every single year because, hey, you weren't rich enough. Your kids weren't rich enough. And so but all of those come back to, because they work for the drug companies, they work for the health insurance companies, they work for the oil companies, they work for the banks, et cetera. Look, we're gonna run out of time, but I gotta say a couple of things, and I wanna go back to the movie real quick. So the original convention that they had is not like the one in the Constitution. The Constitution described how the convention is going to be to propose amendments. It's different. But even that original convention, people are like, oh yeah, it just, once they came out, Ben Franklin said, we have a document. No, it got ratified.
Oh, it actually got proposed to Congress first and then it got ratified. So that's the real precedent of 1787, and that's exactly, some of our opposition says that's the only precedence we have, which isn't true for a lot of reasons that we'll explain in the film.
Exactly, look, we don't have time here to explain the whole story. That's why we're doing the movie, okay? Wolf-PAC.com/film, because when you watch it, you'll go, oh, now that makes sense. Like, now even Democrats who are opposed to it, they're like, no, we don't want you to amend the Constitution because that could affect the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are amendments. So like they can't, it's amazing that they don't realize the irony of that statement. So last thing, Mike, a lot of people are giving already, and we can put it over the top at wolf-pac.com/film. But so how are you gonna make the movie? And what do people get, et cetera?
Well, the reason we need to raise this money is because we need to hire professionals who know how to do this stuff, right?
Right.
You could, if you've seen my promo video, you'll see it's not perfect.
So for two reasons. Number one, the audio is a little off. That's why you got to hire professionals.
Just to name one. Yes.
Yeah. Number two, he's wearing a Bill Belichick shirt. And that is unacceptable. That is the other thing that all Americans can agree on of being anti-Belichick. That's the next amendment. Yes.
Yep, I've gotten some crap for that too. Yes, the cropping's not perfect. We need to hire professionals so the audio will be perfect. We need to travel, right? We have people lined up all over the country. We've got professors, scholars, volunteers from coast to coast. So that's expensive, obviously, to be able to do that. And we're grassroots at Wolf-PAC. We are funded by people paying $10 a month. So to be able to add on to what we're already doing and make a film is a lot. So if we can hit the $50,000 mark, it's gonna help us a lot. If we can keep going, that would be great too. But that is a minimum that we're going to need to be able to make this.
Yeah, and there's some great perks. Some great folks. Two people have already given $5,000. That lets you come to the studio and watch the show with us, etc. You don't have to give that much. Just $5, whatever you can afford, and all of it makes a difference. But $500 gets you a screening with online screening with me and Professor Larry Lessig, who's an absolute hero in this campaign, and so check it out. They're all on wolf-pac.com/film, and let's get this done because you've got to tell the story. And even for politicians, you'd be shocked at how much they don't know. And people are visual. Instead of trying to explain it to them in a way, here, watch this movie, and then you can show it to family and friends. And at the end of the day, what it is hope for actually fixing the system, because we already know the plan. It's already worked a great number of times. We've got over 24 amendments, partly half of them because we did this. We did this exact same plan. We have a proven plan. People don't know about it. That's why you need the movie. Mike, thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Good to have you. Okay. All right, when we come back, Greg Palast is going to join us, and he's got an amazing story about how there's more racial voter suppression going on. So don't go anywhere. We'll come right back.
Did you guys know that there are lawmakers here in the United States who want to make it difficult for people to view porn? Now, this has been an ongoing thing in American politics. And so one way that they're trying to do this is by proposing a bill that would charge people online $20 to access porn each time they want to access porn. But one way, if this passes, which I highly doubt it will, but if it does, here's the good news. You have the option of using a VPN. Like NordVPN. And what it does is it can totally mislead people about where you're located. So you could be in the United States, but you could use your VPN and make it seem like you're actually in Australia or whatever, wherever you want to be. So yeah, use the URL that you see on the screen right there, nordvpn.com/TYT, and you get a giant discount, 75% off for 3 years, and you get the first month free. All right.
Do they really want to do $20 a time?
I mean, I don't think that bill is gonna pass. Like, that's an insane bill, but.
No.
By the way, like, isn't it kind of creepy that there are lawmakers in America right now who are sitting around thinking about our porn viewing habits?
That's true.
Like, how about you fix other issues that need fixing?
You could raise a lot of money. Oh, you want to know how we're gonna pay for the Green New Deal?
Are you kidding me? People will find a way.
And I'll tell you.
People will find a way to get that porn for free. You're crazy. Okay.
Look, we're doing interviews over there. and we've done some amazing ones recently.
So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all?
And we're in the time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history in 2017. Right.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Damage Report, another week of the news. I am John Idarola, and we've got a doozy of a show for you. My God, is DC up its own ass today. We have put someone into power in our country who is so crazy, they have finally out-crazied North Korea.
The US is the only country in the world that isn't part of the Paris Climate Accord.
Yesterday, Donald Trump did exactly what he told us. He pulled the US out of the Iran nuclear accords.
People call the police on black people. People are fearful of black humans. There is no more to the story than racism.
I was gonna say we've been dealing with the issue of lead poisoning in this country, but that would imply that we're really doing something. We have an issue with lead poisoning and it continues. So 60 people are now dead. Some of them grandmothers, many of them children. The silence of politicians on both sides of the aisle. Just about only Bernie Sanders, maybe Tulsi Gabbard, and a few others have actually been critical of what happened there. And the rest are cowards hiding behind silence, refusing to admit what happened yesterday.
We have to be able to accept that we do things wrong in this country. You can fix and change things, make things even.
What's great about our country, and this is a great example of it, is everybody's pissed off. This is The Damage Report, and it's all about the threats facing us each day. When something's relevant, and it's hot, and it's in the news, you're not supposed to talk about it. Can we start talking about it now? Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
All right, back on the Young Turks. So I checked wolf-pac.com/film during the break. Of course, boom, over 19,000, 19,005. And then I refreshed right before we came on air. Wrong, 19,284. So let's keep it going, brothers and sisters. Okay. And tonight, by the way, I'm going to be on Cuomo Primetime on CNN. It's at 9 o'clock Eastern. I'm gonna talk about Acosta and Epstein, and I'm gonna breathe fire on that. So don't miss that. It's gonna be great. Speaking of not missing things, right after this next interview, the last half hour of the Young Turks, of course, for members. Anna Kasparian is gonna come back, and Alonso's gonna come back, and JR is gonna join them. It's gonna be a wonderful post game. So TYT.com/trial to become a member. Okay, joining me now in studio is Greg Palast. He's a investigative reporter, in fact, award-winning. In fact, you just won an award for investigative journalist, international journalist of the year in Mexico.
Yes.
The Association of Mexican Journalists gave that to you.
Yes, throughout Latin America. So I was the international journalist of the year, cementing my post as prophet outcast in his own land. A lot of it for my investigations, actually, in the fixing of the elections in Georgia, how Stacey Abrams lost. That was big news actually throughout Latin America. You know, about 1 billion people of color concerned about what's happening here in the US with apartheid elections. And also because back in 2006, the current president of Mexico had won his election. I investigated that too. So, I've been doing investigations of fixed elections all over the planet, but
yeah. So Greg, Latin Americans, would they know anything about Americans fixing elections?
Well, because they use the same consultants to do the fixing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the trick. So, you see some of the same cats like Karl Rove, et cetera, down there working their systems. But I'm really worried because I broke a story back in 2016 for Rolling Stone and then on here in Young Turks that there was a system called Crosscheck created by a guy named Chris Kobach of Kansas, or KKK as we call him. And no one knew who he was then. You kind of introduced him. He's the vote thief in chief for Donald Trump. And he had a system called Interstate Crosscheck in which he started removing people who are voting twice, all these evil, fraudulent voters. For example, James Brown, 535 guys named James Brown in Georgia voting in other states because they found James Brown in Detroit and they found James Brown in Arizona. Even though one was James Thomas Brown, the other was James Edward Brown, said same guy voting twice, remove him. And the trick was 85 of the 100 most common last names in America are minority names, Rodriguez, Nguyen, Black, Johnson, etc. So it's a wonderful way, and they knocked off 1.1 million minority voters in 2016. That could have been the number that put Trump over the top, not the voters, but the trick by Kobach. The good news is that we've just about killed off that program with exposure. The bad news is that they've got a new one. And that's what I'm concerned with, new programs.
So I'm very concerned about 2020. We're gonna get to that in a second. But I just had an epiphany. So we talked about Crosscheck. I've talked about it on the show a number of times. And I know that trick. And I know that Asians have I think the most common last names.
Yes.
And then Latinos and then African Americans. And I used to say for whatever reason, white folks have a variety of last names, so it doesn't affect them as much. When Republicans notice that, they're like, perfect. We'll say they have the same name, it's the same guy, we'll cross them off, and it'll hit minorities harder, which vote more Democratic. But one thing I had not realized until you were just talking about it, Greg, is the reason African Americans have similar last names is because of the plantations.
Slavery.
And they would take on the last names of the slave owners. And all of them would have the same last name from the same plantation.
Right.
So it is slavery raining down on us for another round of discrimination.
That's right, slavery doesn't leave us. It works right into massive voter purging. And the idea that slavery is something that used to be, no, it's still echoing, and they understand it and they use it because they understand these demographic issues. And even in the new gimmick, like the new one I've just uncovered. Okay, in Georgia, I've just filed a federal lawsuit against Brian Kemp, who is now Governor Kemp. He was Secretary of State Kemp in charge of the election in which he ran for governor. He wiped out, just before the election, over 500,000 voters. I sued him in federal court and got the list of all the voters in Georgia that were purged, and mostly for having left the state or moved. I then got the nation's top experts from Silicon Valley, took the computer tapes, had them go name by name, and they said, with absolute 100% certainty, 340,134 people, overwhelmingly minorities, 1/3 people, never left their registration homes, but they lost their right to vote. And you might say, well, how did they pick out minorities? Well, again, they understand the demographics. And they're really good at this stuff, really good, okay? So what they did was they said if people missed 2 federal elections, okay, you blew off the 2016 election, or like me, I got assigned out of state and I lost my vote. I didn't have a chance to vote. And if you missed a midterm, like in 14, because there was, especially in black areas, there were uncontested congressional elections, people didn't bother to vote. Missed 2, you get a postcard. You don't return the postcard, you lose your vote. Now you say, well, okay, so return the postcard. The answer is it looks like junk mail, and minorities and low-income people and students, another blue demographic, move. So what the census found, they measured this. They said you're about 600% more likely to return a postcard from the government if you're white, suburban, and a homeowner and elderly than if you're black, urban, and young. They understand the demographics, and it's not small. 1/3 of a million people. And by the way, in the 1/3 of a million people was included Christine Ford. Because I had the list. I went to the polls. And Christine Ford was there. She tried to vote. She's 92 years old. Well, now she's 93. Martin Luther King's cousin.
I think we have a tape of that.
Do you have the tape of that?
Yeah.
Oh
Can
my
we
God.
roll that, guys?
Has this ever happened to you before?
Never.
How long you been voting?
All my life, ever since I was old enough. But I've been voting right here ever since 1968.
And it's horrible. And I say that because the West End, she's been in this community back when when they were doing sit-ins. She held civil rights meetings in her home. And today to come out and not be able to vote and no one can give you an explanation, like, it's extremely emotional and it bothers me. It bothers me to my core. Like, there's actually no record of her whatsoever voting in any election whatsoever, and it's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
So Greg, she's Martin Luther King's cousin?
Yeah, we didn't know that when I took the film. Her niece was absolutely distraught. She's talking about civil rights meetings at home because it was where Martin Luther King went after his sermons on Sunday, and they would have the meetings for the civil rights movement in her home.
Makes sense. He's
And
from Atlanta.
so for 50 years, but what happened? She got a postcard. Okay, and by the way, she never missed voting. But understand, they have all kinds of ways to send you postcards. We call it purge by postcard. She's 92. Her niece has to come over and read the mail. There's tons of it. It looks like junk mail gets thrown out. That's what happens. And so what happens, they understand the demographic that they're hitting. And they also know how to get to the white voters and say, look out for this stuff. You've got to return this postcard. You know, so you'd say, well, okay, it's just a postcard, but it isn't. Just so you know, the National Voter Registration Act says in like hard black type, you may not remove anyone from the voter rolls for not voting. In America, you have the right to vote, right not to vote.
Right.
So what are they doing? They're saying, oh, we're not saying that these people are being removed because they missed a couple votes, because that's absolutely against federal law. What they're saying is, they didn't vote and they didn't return a postcard. Oh, they must have moved away.
Yeah.
Now, it's insane, but it affects about, not just Georgia, about 30 states. GOP states are using this to just erase voter rolls.
So Greg, let's dive into the numbers real quick. So 340,000 people wiped off the rolls in Georgia.
Illegally.
And how much did Kemp beat Stacey Abrams by theoretically?
Officially 54,000 votes.
So if those 340,000 got the vote, there's an excellent chance she would have won.
Well, according to Stacey Abrams, she quotes that 340,000 number from me, and she said, because of that, there is no question that I won, but I was not inaugurated. And I bless her for saying it.
So is there any shot at justice, or no, we cheated, we won, who cares, it's over?
Both. There's a shot at justice, but we've already been shot by injustice. Stacey Abrams started it by being one of the first Democratic candidates ever to say, I lost an election because of racial vote manipulation. Others say, oh, I don't want to attack the democratic process like Al Gore. You know, I did the story back in 2000 where Katherine Harris, a Republican Secretary of State, removed tens of thousands of black folk from the voter rolls, saying that they were felons who couldn't vote. About 58,000 were removed. Almost all black, no guessing because it says BLA next to their names in Georgia rolls. And not a single one was an ex-con, not one. That's what elected George Bush. This has been happening every time, every 4 years there's a new gimmick. So it's like whack-a-mole, expose one, they come up with another. So we expose crosscheck, we expose the fake felon purge. Now they have this purge by postcard saying you don't live there anymore. Chris Kobach spreading this over 30 states. The GOP is going to use this. Crosscheck wiped out 1.1 million voters in 2016, wrongly. They couldn't identify any double voters from that list, not one. They removed 1 million people. And I think that this is going to remove double that.
Okay, so Greg, we're running out of time, and so I want to ask you about one more set of numbers. Trump won Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin by 78,000 votes.
Right.
That's just 39,000 people if they flip, right? But forget the flipping, let's just call it 78,000. How many people do you think were wiped off the voter rolls in 2016 across the country?
We know 14 million according to the Brennan Center. That's accurate. About at least 3 million illegally, wrongly removed. I can tell you in Michigan, I spoke to Secretary of State, I went there right after the election, at least 60,000 people wrongly removed by cross-check. No one double voted, they didn't arrest anyone. That was a complete steal. Wisconsin, there were a non-count of votes. By the way, the so-called recount was stopped in a federal court by Trump's lawyers. So it was there were about 100,000 ballots which were simply rejected and never counted in Madison and Milwaukee Democratic counties. Pennsylvania, very similar story, a non-count of votes which could not be recounted because of the machines they use. Ohio, Arizona, Iowa, other suspect states.
Yeah, I mean, get a load of this final irony. This just occurred to me as you stated the numbers. 3 million people illegally taken off the voter rolls that helped Trump win. The number he always uses as the number of people who voted fake votes is 3 million. Now, remember, there were no 3 million fake voters. He tried Chris Kobach's.
Well, they're looking for the alien voters, and I said, "Show me them. Where is Jose coming out of the Rio Grande to vote for Hillary Clinton? Where is that voter?"
Yeah, none. They never had any evidence. They had to shut down the commission. Deeply embarrassed. Chris Kobach was the head of that commission, and they tucked tail and ran because they were lying all the way. It turns out the real 3 million was actually in their favor because they got rid of those voters. And that is exactly what the Republican Party and Trump does every time. It's projection. Whatever they're guilty of, they claim the Democrats did or the other side did.
It's not estimating. We have the names and addresses of people wrongly removed.
So everybody check out gregpalast.com. You're gonna find out a lot more there, gregpalast.com. Okay, Greg, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
We got a lot of work to do.
Exactly right, because the next election is coming up. We got to get vigilant right now. All right, everybody, great post games coming up. Anna, Alonzo, and JR. So tyt.com/Tron to become a member. Check out the post game, and I'll see you guys on CNN at 9 o'clock as well. All right, we'll see you soon.